Let's call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Collazo.
Present.
Councilmember Diegues.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilmember Ruano is here. Councilmember Alvarez just let me know that he was going to be a few minutes late. Vice Mayor Rodriguez is here. Mayor Sid.
Present.
Mayor, you have the quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Joshua Diegues. Let's remain standing for the prayer led by Councilman Luis Collazo.
Thank you. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight. We ask you for wisdom and the opportunity to listen to each other and everyone in the room. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Council, and if there aren't any objections, unless somebody has one, and so we educate the public fully, I would like for our town attorney to do his presentation and go on from there on the different topics. So when the folks come up to speak, they have all the information in front of them. So if there's any objections on that, I'd like to see that first, where we present all the facts on our side. We don't take any action, and then we allow the public to speak before we take any action, so that way the public is fully informed as to what's going on our end, what the options are, instead of the other way around. If there's no objections on that end, see none.
I have no objection.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo. I know this was your item initially, where our council fully supported it, and we all I added several different discussion points here. So, Mr. Attorney. And the public will have an opportunity to speak before the council makes any sort of decision. So then that way the public is fully informed as to what's happening and what are the different options on our end. I do want to recognize some of the folks with us today. We have Commissioner Steve Bovo here with us today. I know we have Representative Cindy Polo in the back. How you doing, Representative? We have former Mayor Slane. We also have a representative from Commissioner Pepe Diaz's office here with us. And additionally, we have some folks from the Florida Department of Transportation here with us today also. Mr. Attorney. Representative, if you'd like to sit in the front, there's a seat up here if you'd like to sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've together, myself and the legal team sitting behind me have put together a presentation for you on where we stand, history, how we got here, which I think is extremely important, is how did we get to where we are? What agreements are in place, what happened, and then I'm going to conclude by telling you what I think some of the things you should do are. The town incorporated in 2000. If you open the packet in front of you, the town incorporated. Something that's very important is the legal description to the town. What are our boundaries? That's extremely important because that tells you what we have jurisdiction over and what we don't. I know the members of the public can't see it, but if you look on yours, specifically lines 3 and 4, as far as our northern boundary, you'll see to the center line of Northwest 170th. the line below it, thence southerly along the center line of said Northwest 170th Street. The end of line 4, again, Northwest 170th Street. So our town, our northern border in the northwest section of the town is the center part of Northwest 170th Street, in that corner. Frankly, our surveyors have showed us that the town's limits probably go slightly beyond where the road is located. So we own probably 2/3 of that road, depending on where it is. Surveyors, you know, the roads aren't exact, they're not perfect and everything else, but the fact is, Northwest 170th Street is in our town and is something that we will, as I'll show you, we have a say-so over. The next one is Northwest 154th Street. As you can see, it's hard to see there, but I think we're all familiar with the roundabout where to the top, which is north, goes into the Satari development. It ends to the west of where the western loop of the circle is. That patch in there, that belongs to the town. As you go a little further west, when you see the line that goes up and down, that is the center part, the line where the FDOT, in other words, it's within the town's boundaries, but it's owned by FDOT, starting there, going over the bridge. Northwest 170th Street, that corner, it's a little strange. Unlike Northwest 154th Street, it's not a straight up and down line. If you see where the street ends, then underneath to the south part of the street, there's another line and down. For some reason, that, to our surveyors, for the time being, because he's still doing some more research. And frankly, to be honest with you, one of the reasons when he was doing his research, he ran into people at the county who actually some of the documents because they were doing something very similar to this. This is extremely time sensitive. So if you see Northwest 170th Street, our town's border is that dashed line. Going south of that is the town. You can see the jogging trail, and then underneath that, the dark thing is the canal, etc. Now, the next slide. In 2003, the town and the county entered into what's called a road transfer agreement. Those are the first 2 pages of the road transfer agreement. That's next in your presentation. Essentially, this is an agreement between the county and Miami Lakes where we took the roads, we were deeded the roads. It's a road transfer agreement. The roads within the town, except for 2, 67th Avenue and 87th Avenue, were all transferred to Miami Lakes. The jurisdiction, the right to design, the right to construct, the right to improve, the right to plan, all of those, as you'll see in this agreement, were transferred to us. It is our responsibility. There's a reason the county wanted to do that. They wanted us to pay for it. There was a quid pro quo here. This wasn't a gift. If you look, in that agreement, flip over to the next page, it's called the whereas clause. In the law, we call them whereas clauses, which is essentially where they're talking about why we're doing what we're doing. In this case, the second whereas clause, the county and the town are desirous of transferring the underlying title and responsibility. So we get title and responsibility for the planning, design, construction, improvement, and maintenance for the road segments from the county to the town. That is the second whereas clause in the agreement. The fifth whereas clause in the agreement. As the county and the town have determined that it is in the best interest of the parties, it's in the best interest of the county, and it's in the best interest of the town, that responsibilities for the operation, maintenance, planning, design, and construction of the road segments and of any future improvements thereto be transferred to the town. We go to paragraph 1 of the agreement. Says all of those whereas clauses that I just read to you are incorporated into the agreement. So they're part of the agreement. Paragraph 2 of the agreement. The jurisdiction, and this is repetitive, but it's important. The jurisdiction, ownership, and control of all public roads as defined within the town as part of the county road system, etc. What's important about this paragraph 2 is that all of the roads in the entire town are transferred to us except for two, 67th Avenue and 87th Avenue. Other than that, those are what we call the exempt roads. Okay. Northwest 154th Street is a little different, or a lot different, than Northwest 170th Street. Northwest 170th Street is partly within the town and partly outside the town. Technically, not theoretically, but actually. We are joint owners, I guess, of that road. That's the only way to look at it. We both own parts of that road. Northwest 154th Street is completely different. That road is completely within the town. No part of that road is outside of the town. So that one, there's no ownership by the county at all. All right. I've got to give you the good with the bad. Paragraph 3 of the road transfer agreement, and we expect the county to be harping on this quite a bit. In the agreement, and pursuant to county ordinance, there's an ordinance that's been in effect, I think, what, 1990 or something like that? There's a county ordinance in effect that essentially says the county is the one who decides access and road closures, okay? Not road openings and things like that, or construction of roads. That's a huge distinction. Here is where the county essentially controls, and I don't know if some of you remember when we were putting up the street light on 162nd and 82nd Avenue, we had to get approval from the county. When it comes to stop signs, street lights, markings, detours, things like that, the county has retained the rights to do it. Within the agreement, it does make a reference to including road closures. It's there in black and white. Now, that doesn't talk about road openings. That doesn't talk about construction of roads. So if there's no road there, they can't trespass on our land. At least I don't believe they can. I don't believe they can trespass on our land and make us build a road, because the agreement 100% says that we are the ones who construct, maintain, improve, plan, and design. So this is something that we will be faced with. Our arguments are what I just told you about. I've got others that I will talk to you about, most probably in an executive session at some point. You can't hear it? I'm sorry. Yeah, right. First time in my life someone's told me they can't hear me. I apologize. This is a very important provision. I will talk to you about it in an executive session, probably when litigation commences, if it does. If not, I'll talk to you about it individually, just like I did leading up to this meeting. The next paragraph in the agreement, once again, town agrees to accept all legal rights, responsibilities, and obligation with respect to the road segments. That's basically everything except for 67th and 87th Avenue, including but not limited to the planning, design, construction, improvement, and maintenance of road segments. All right. I believe, and I believe any court will believe, that when it comes to doing anything on these roads, they have to consult with us. Without a doubt, they haven't consulted with us, especially at the county level. I'm telling you, they haven't consulted with us, as far as I can tell. When I have spoken to them, I have gotten, up until just the other day, we have no plans to build on 170th. I'm talking within the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We don't know what you're talking about, Raul. We'll go into it later, but when we did, and the manager was there, Lorenzo was there, we would have to come out and say, what do you mean you're not building? Why is there some budget money being moved? And we would show them documents. And why are these emails coming to us from FDOT where you're talking about this? Why is that going on? We have not been told about this. This has been all done, and we find out about a lot of these things through the media or through the various representatives of the various governmental entities. But as far as legally, coming to us and say, Raul, we want to open this road, we want to do something here, that hasn't happened. And as far as I know, they haven't talked to the manager about it either. There hasn't been, and that's a word that I'm constantly, when I'm sitting up there hearing, transparency. Our town, all I hear at every meeting, we want to be transparent, we want to be transparent. That's not happening. You guys need to know that. All right, back to history. Hialeah decided to annex west of I-75. They own, I believe their northern border is 170th. It's actually the canal in front of 170th. That's my understanding. They decided to annex out there. They decided to build and do their own plan and design. They submitted it to the state, along with the county, as an amendment to the county's development plan. The state of Florida, the Department of Community Affairs, did not think it was an acceptable plan. To the point where, and the way the Administrative Procedure Act works and everything else, the Department of Community Affairs actually had to file a lawsuit against the city of Hialeah and the county, and named them as defendants, so that they could not proceed with their amendment of the plan. When the town found out about it, the town actually intervened in that litigation. We filed a petition to intervene in that lawsuit. The court and the county and the Hialeah agreed that we could intervene, and we intervened, and we litigated. We hired experts, they hired experts, we exchanged discovery, depositions were taken, hearings were set, then postponed. It was becoming a real problem for them, for the county and Hialeah, to move forward without our agreement. We were totally against almost everything that was going on out there in terms of development. We foresaw this. We knew, and we presented in court and to others, that this was a significant problem for Miami Lakes. In January of 2007, Mayor Robina, in order to resolve the litigation, approached the town of Miami Lakes with correspondence, asking us to settle the case, and proposed closing off Northwest 154th Street on both sides. It was their idea to the town of Miami Lakes to resolve that litigation. They offered to pass resolutions. We said no.
Let's use this mic instead. There, it's on.
Why, is it going in and out? That's what I
They
thought.
couldn't hear you on the streaming services.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Mayor Robina approached us with correspondence. They approached us with a resolution. The town, thankfully, said no, resolutions can be rescinded. That's a problem, that's not binding enough, that doesn't have teeth. We agreed to put it in the form of a formal agreement. And Hialeah's promise to the town in writing, passed by their council, passed by our council, with the blessing of Miami-Dade County. They didn't sign it, but they were sure glad we did it, because that meant that they could proceed without us, and that they had already reached an agreement on most points with the Department of Community Affairs, so Miami Lakes was now out of the way so that they could proceed. Hialeah promised during the term of this agreement, Hialeah agrees that theoretical Northwest 154th Street on the immediate west side of I-75 shall not be accepted by Hialeah for use as a public roadway through a dedication, deed, or any other instrument, nor shall it be designed, constructed, or opened as a public road in any capacity that would allow the traversal of vehicular traffic eastbound from Hialeah into Miami Lakes, and Hialeah shall not take any actions that advocate, support, approve, or permit, either directly or indirectly, the design, construction of, or use of theoretical Northwest 154th Street or on the immediate west side of I-75 as a public roadway for the traversal of traffic eastbound from Hialeah's jurisdiction into the town until the term expires. That was signed and approved by all bodies. Not only that, in the negotiations, Hialeah wanted to make the agreement only for 10 years. One of the drafts of the agreement says 10 years. We had that taken out. It's perpetual. And there's a reason for that. We foresaw all of this. The town signed exactly the same thing. Both sides are prohibited from doing this by agreement. This was in 2007. This wasn't in the 1920s. This wasn't before Hialeah was incorporated. This wasn't something in the 1950s where things are different now and everything else. No, this was 12 short years ago when we knew all of this was going to happen and all of this was going on. Like I said, it's a binding agreement signed by Mayor Slayton, signed by Julio Robina. They have, on Hialeah's side, they have the same exact road transfer agreement as we do. In other words, they are the only ones in their agreement with the county that can develop Northwest 154th Street. The county, by contract, cannot make them build out Northwest 154th Street on their side. It is totally within their control. They can't turn around and say, I'm sorry, the county's doing this. There's nothing we can do. Their road transfer agreement, under their road transfer agreement, they have the same rights and responsibilities as we do on this side. Now, about advocating. The agreement says specifically they can't advocate. To be honest with you, I think they've breached it. There's no doubt in my mind they've breached it. Some of us have listened to the tapes. This and you can't see it very well, those are two tweets from City of Hialeah, or at City of Hialeah. I don't know much about Twitter. Sorry, but I'm sure some of my younger colleagues back here do. But this is from the City of Hialeah itself. This isn't from a commissioner advocating, which is prohibited under the agreement. This is from the administration. Desperate matters for residents unable to leave or go homes. Thank you, resident, for posting this. Pushing unopened road barricades, open 154 and 170. That's from their website, from them. Then, the one below it. Mayor Hernandez agrees with your concerns. He has been working furiously to open the bridges and to finish the exits on 102 and 107 as soon as possible. We foresee the opening of 102 Avenue within the next, I think that's 90 days. He's working furiously to open the bridges. He goes on TV, he's talking about opening the bridges. He doesn't say one, and they've been doing this. I could show you more as to what the rest of the council's doing. And God knows what's being said when it's not on social media. Now, they've got a town hall meeting. Commissioner Diaz has set up a town hall meeting for 2 days from now, next Wednesday, at the Aragon Community Center. I will bet you that every single one of the Hialeah Council will be there, advocating for opening of the bridges. Just a premonition that I have. That will be a violation of the terms of the agreement. Like I said earlier, this is the City of Hialeah Road Transfer Agreement that they have. Now, okay, we've got an agreement with them on Northwest 154th. Guess what? After that, we entered into more agreements as to how exactly this was going to be done. And each one of our councils signed a linear park agreement. Their side passed the resolution to build a linear park over that, and our side passed a resolution to build a linear park over 154th Street. I'm not hearing any of this. When I listen to social media and I see everything, no one's talking about there are agreements. There are agreements in place for all of this. This was signed recently. The resolution of our town was in 2018. The resolution of the City of Hialeah was in 2015. All right. This is not, we have been in dispute resolution, as you remember. In the dispute resolution context as far as the statutes are concerned. The Florida legislature enacted certain laws as to how you resolve disputes between different governments. That's in Chapter 164, and we call it the dispute resolution process. There are certain meetings that have to take place. You initially, in January of 2019, gave us authority to commence with the dispute resolution process over 154th Street because of all the rumblings that we kept hearing and the fact that we have an agreement in place as far as that's concerned. We put various parties on notice, and we started the dispute resolution process. We had an informal meeting just with the attorneys. Then we had 2 more meetings with staff, both from our side, from the City of Hialeah's side, and from the county. In the meantime, when it came to Northwest 154th Street, it was suggested that maybe a resolution could be put in front of the county commission to get something done on Northwest 154th Street permanently signed by the county. Commissioner Bovo has agreed to place something on the county agenda. If I'm not mistaken, it's October? Okay. I think we're shooting for September, October, probably October. It's not on there yet. That's concerning, but they're working on it. On Northwest 170th Street, my marching orders were, Raul, speak to them on start the process there and try and get something resolved as far as Northwest 170th Street is concerned at the same time. At every meeting, I brought it up. Every single meeting. I was, at first, like I told you earlier, told there's nothing in the works. Remember, this is between January of this year and now. This wasn't told to me 5 years ago. This is in the last 8 months, 7 months. There's nothing in the works. Well, I certainly think there is now. We couldn't understand what was going on, why budget items were being moved around, why certain emails were being sent, why certain things were being done. We couldn't understand it. When we'd confront them, I don't know what you're talking about. That's what we were told. So, right now, the next step is to bring forth dispute resolution as far as Northwest 170th is concerned. I think the county is violating the agreement. I think they're planning on opening it without a doubt. I mean, they're flat out saying it. They're going to open it, and they're not even considering talking to us about it. And we have agreements in place. We've got, what, 4 agreements in place that require that. I have done and counseled patience on this as often as every time we've talked. Let's give us a chance. Give the process a chance. Give the process a chance. The process isn't working. There's other steps to be taken, which includes meeting of the bodies and things like that. We'll be pushing for that. I am seriously concerned that they're trying to delay us on the one end and build on the other end. So I'm probably going to be, I'm going to be asking you tonight for authority to be able to proceed with litigation, including injunctive relief, if we need to stop them from doing what they have said they are going to do and to discontinue any breach. In other words, stop the city of Hialeah on Northwest 154th Street from doing everything they're doing, including any development out there, any road developments on 154th. It has been our position that we don't want to experience deja vu all over again. We don't want to go back to 2007 where we're telling you it's a bad idea to develop out there. And if you're going to develop out there, develop with infrastructure. We had no choice but to enter into the agreement that they suggested on Northwest 154th. Well, we're back at it. Now we've got choices. Again, all we've been insisting in the dispute resolution process is that if you're going to build out Northwest 170th, you have to discuss it with us, and there are certain things that we want done before you open up the lanes of traffic. Number 1, connect 87th Avenue to the Gratney. Number 2, connect 67th Avenue to the Gratney. Number 3, build the underpasses under the Palmetto at 146 and 160. Build your connection on 170th to the Turnpike. Do things right this time. Do the infrastructure right. If you're having an explosion over there in development, declare a moratorium. Declare a state of emergency. Do what you have to do over there. But we negotiated these deals. We negotiated these agreements with you in good faith not that long ago. And now they're being thrown out the window. That's a breach of these agreements, and we probably will have to go to court for this. All right, what do I need? What am I requesting? A resolution to proceed with dispute resolution regarding Northwest 170th Street. I already have one as far as Northwest 154th. A resolution to proceed with litigation in court if necessary, injunctive relief for both streets. I suggest that you proceed with development of the linear parks or something along that sort on Northwest 154th Street, as has been agreed upon. I suggest that you do something on 170th Street. It's going to require some creativity. I've bounced some of the issues off of staff. It's not easy, but I suggest you do something there. 1 second. If you've got any questions, please let me know. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Town Attorney. We can ask the Town Attorney questions now, or we can continue with some of the updates. I'll be providing some with the meeting we had today with Mayor Jimenez, and some of the other updates, some of the folks, too, that have volunteered to speak, to give some historical facts. I know Mayor Slane's here, somebody who signed one of those agreements and was integral in that whole process. And then we can hear from the public, then we come back to questions of the attorney, or whichever way you guys prefer, but I prefer that path, if there's no objections. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. I know Commissioner Bobo has spoke to me before. He's going to be stepping out shortly. A good friend of ours, former Representative Gus Barreiro, passed away recently. His services are tonight. I know one of the great champions of juvenile justice reform here in Florida, which he will be greatly missed. So I know Commissioner will be stepping out soon. Commissioner Pepe Diaz, who could not be here, but I know he sent a staffer. I don't know if that staffer is in the room. I spoke briefly with Commissioner Diaz, counsel, and Commissioner Diaz stated his position obviously does not represent Miami Lakes, but he said he'd be willing to work with the town on on-ramps to I-75. He said that's something he'd be willing to work with us on, but he still believes in opening up the bridges to east and west traffic. But that he did say that to me, and I told him that I'd relay that message to you all and to the public. The manager and I also went to County Hall today. We visited with Mayor Jimenez, who stated his position very clear to the manager and I. And Mr. Manager, if I state something, you can add anything else you like. The mayor had stated that his position on 170th was to move forward on 170th. We expressed our position to the county mayor, and he also expressed that he would like to do a traffic study on with regards to 154, and he would base his decision based on that. Where we told him, look, the traffic study has been already paid for by the taxpayers of Miami Lakes, where we, in conjunction with the county, worked on those assumptions, and it showed that it would be detrimental. Not only 154, but any movement in that area, 170th. So he stated his position. I told him I relayed to you all. It was a 2-hour meeting. Mr. Manager, you want to add a little bit more insight from that meeting today?
No, I think that he was, I don't want to speak for him, but I believe that he said he didn't want to do anything that was going to be detrimental to any one side, either west of I-75 or east of I-75. So he asked, obviously, as most people know, there are the two, I guess, conflicting traffic studies. A traffic study that was done by Miami-Dade County probably about 2 years ago. Subsequent to that, there was a study that was done at town of Miami Lakes is calling, that we had a study commissioned, and that study had conflicting recommendations to the Dade County study. So the county mayor suggested that we do another study, and that we would agree to the parameters in advance, we would agree to the methodology in advance, and pursue that way, and then see what the impact is going to be. Just as a recap, the county study that was done in-house, the county study called for both bridges opening. The Miami Lakes study called for the closing. It looked at multiple alternatives. It looked at all the development, that has been going on both east and west of the I-75. It looked at the construction of the new mall out there. It looked at all of the promised infrastructure improvements that the developer of the mall is going to put forward. And after all of those things, it still called for the closing of 154. And the opening of 170th, our study indicated that it shouldn't even be considered until a lot of the, well, all of the infrastructure improvements that Mr. Castesi rolled out recently, including the elevation of the Palmetto, the expansion of the Palmetto, the 2 underpasses, the Texas U-turn at 67th Avenue, the 170th interchange with the Turnpike. All of those would have to be completed before the opening of 170th for that not to have a detrimental effect to the area east of I-75.
So I repeat, yeah, the county mayor's position was that on 170th, that he wanted to move forward. Well, I told him, you know, what our position was very clearly, and he said he would base his position on 154 on a traffic study where we told him we already worked with the county on those assumptions. But I also expressed to the county mayor that our disappointment, but I told him what our position was, and I'd relay that message to the council. Also, I know there's been a lot of confusion in regards to the reasoning why some folks continue to ask, especially on the other side of I-75. We keep hearing public safety. We keep hearing there's an infrastructure. City of Hialeah is saying the opposite, right? City of Hialeah is saying that there's going to be infrastructure very soon. City of Hialeah is saying there's going to be a fire station. City of Hialeah is saying all these things, and I apologize because this video is in Spanish, and Councilwoman Ruano is going to translate for the folks in English. Don, if you can play the video, it starts at 30 seconds and it goes to 2 minutes and I think 15 seconds. And it will be translated by Councilwoman Ruano. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Millones y millones de dólares para infraestructura ahí. Como dijo, la 142, que costó casi 5 millones de dólares, se hizo con la 102 para que salgan, las personas esas tengan más acceso. Y el plan de esa área siempre ha sido, para que lo sepas también, por eso estamos trabajando duro en la 102 y la 107, para que los camiones en el futuro no puedan usar la 97 Avenida. Eso es parte de ese plan. Y de nuevo, eso lo están viendo en este momento cualquier ciudadano que vive ahí, que quiera. Saben que la 142 ya está hecha y la 102, como estoy diciendo, le estoy diciendo a los ciudadanos de la ciudad de Hialeah, estarán en septiembre, eso estará abierto. Vamos a hablar del servicio porque hoy críticas de servicio. El servicio de Hialeah lo comparo con cualquier ciudad o el condado o el que quiera. Nosotros, y tengo las estadísticas aquí, nosotros tenemos 2 policías asignados a esa área donde reciben 4 llamadas diarias. Este año, te estoy hablando de los años en el 2019, 2 llamadas diarias. Hemos tenido 124 llamadas de bomberos rescue y el tiempo de responder de este año es mejor que los últimos años. Sobre el servicio, nosotros en lo que es seguridad, estoy muy orgulloso que en el futuro, y hay planes para todo, cuando venga más áreas industriales, ya tenemos el lugar donde se hará una estación pequeña de bomberos. Pero en este momento...
Que beneficiaría a los residentes del noroeste de Hialeah.
Absolutamente, pero en este momento, con la cantidad de llamadas que existen, el servicio es fantástico con lo que tenemos en policías y bomberos. Todo el mundo quiere siempre más, Ambrosio. Pero de nuevo, todo tiene un costo, pero la realidad se miran las estadísticas para ver cuándo eso es necesario o no. Repitiendo, la infraestructura se está haciendo y no prometido. La 102 estará pronto. Los servicios de esa área de policía, de bomberos, están ahí. Así que, de nuevo, vamos a continuar dando y mejorando lo que hacemos en esa área.
Según el reportaje de Erika.
Thank you, Don. Councilwoman Ruano, you want to help translate that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will do my best. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I actually watched this very closely earlier today because I wanted to do my homework. And before I translate, I don't know if there are any representatives from the city of Hialeah here, but I'd like to address some comments that were made by the mayor in previous interviews and in this interview. And I'd like this council as a whole to request from the Honorable Carlos Hernandez, Mayor of the city of Hialeah, a public apology to the residents of the town of Miami Lakes. Thank you. I as elected officials, we take on these positions and we can speak to one another and we can disagree with one another, but I'd like to make it well known that our residents are not fair game for insults, for being called racists, for disparaging comments. I would like him to publicly apologize and retract his statements. Thank you. As far as his interview, he is assuring the residents of the city of Hialeah that there are millions of dollars in infrastructure that are coming to that area. There was a road opened at 142nd Street at a cost of $5 million, which is already opened, and 102nd Avenue, which they anticipate will open in September, and 107th Avenue, which they are hoping to open soon as well. And that will alleviate the trucks that are transported on 97th Avenue, which is, I think, the biggest concern for the residents of that area. He also mentions that their police and fire services are comparable to the county services, that their response times are much better than in previous years. They have 2 police officers that have been allocated to that area, and they receive approximately 4 phone calls per day. They received 911 calls, I'm sorry. They received 124 calls for fire and rescue services, and again, he says that they are anticipating to open a fire station in that area as soon as they have more industrial properties come online. He also mentions that the county commission, Commissioner Pepe Diaz, spoke about opening the bridge on 154th Street and several other things that weren't displayed here. But the gist of it is that the city of Hialeah is responding with infrastructure in the millions of dollars to that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Morano. I just wanted to make a point of that and for our residents to see that, because I know Commissioner Pepe Diaz has stated that the reason that he's pushing the opening of the bridges was due to public safety. Well, that's contrary to what's being said, and he's also pushing it for infrastructure, and it's also contrary to what is happening over there. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record. Before we go to public comments, Council, and if you guys are okay with it, I had asked our founding mayor of the town to come. He signed the original agreement. He negotiated all of this with the city of Hialeah at the time. Mayor Slane, if you just want to come up, welcome, Mayor. And kind of, especially for our newer council members, kind of give them the brief history.
Good evening, Council. It's an honor to be here. I don't know if it's a pleasure to be here, but it's an honor to be here. Thank you for putting this meeting together tonight. You've heard the historical significance of this, actually, and it was very well presented by your town attorney. To boil it down very simply, the 2 bridges were there way before the town of Miami Lakes existed. I will say that. Those bridges have been there since the early 80s. Why they were built, I don't know, but they were there. Now, having said that, as it was made very clear tonight, I do believe that everyone was on the same page in the 2000s when these agreements were entered into between the county and both cities. They were developing, and as I guess we've heard part of tonight, they intended to do the necessary infrastructure, which naturally they would have to do. But for an area that huge, which is almost half the size again of Miami Lakes, it's a lot of infrastructure. And it's going to take them a long time to get that infrastructure built. In the meantime, they've got, obviously, their residents. However, having said that, again, at the time that both cities mutually agreed and with these agreements, and that this was the right thing to do, the county and our commissioner at the time, Sejas, even on 170th Street, took the extra step acknowledging that 170th did not need to be opened. They took 170th out of the 20-year metropolitan planning program to widen 170th from I-75 all the way east to essentially 67th Avenue. It originally had been in a 20-year plan, and approximately around 2006 or 7, I don't know the exact date, but when all this was happening, as a result of all the agreements that everyone made, The county commission, with her prompting, withdrew that entire road expansion project out of the 20-year plan. So think of this, if it had still been in there, and it's not, that was around 2007, we're 2017, 18, 19, it wouldn't be till maybe 2027 before that would even be coming up for funding, not to be built, but for funding. And yet, there's discussion on opening the road now. So I don't see where, that jibes with all the decisions and the rationale made back in 2007. Now, having said that, it's very clear. The residents on the west side of I-75 do not and never will receive any support for police services, public safety, fire rescue from the town of Miami Lakes. They will forever and always receive them from their city. Even if you opened 154th Street, if it was open at this minute, the city of Hialeah is not going to come through the town of Miami Lakes with police cars and fire rescue to go across 154th Street back into the city of Hialeah. That's nonsense. No city does that. They would still be entering that city the same way they have to now, which is through their lateral roads that they have built and will continue to improve upon. So I want to make that very clear. Even if the road was open today, even if 170th was open, none of the concerns that Commissioner Diaz has mentioned would be addressed by these two roads being opened, because the municipality, again, will not be bringing those services up 87th Avenue through the town of Miami Lakes and then going back out into their town. It just doesn't happen that way. So I wanted to bring that to light because sometimes those things are overlooked. But they're pretty significant. The average person doesn't realize that. They just think, I need fire rescue here. I need them quickly. I need the police department. But you have to call your municipality. They're not going to come from the town of Miami Lakes. So having said that, I do believe we have valid agreements. I do believe that even the state entered into one of those agreements. The Department of Transportation, I think, was a co-signee on part of this whole process. Again, acknowledging what was agreed upon at the time. The MPO, which is multiple cities. It's not just Miami Lakes and Hialeah and just our commissioner, but the MPO is the county-wide plan, the county-wide transportation plan. And that was changed and altered at that time, taking 170th completely out of the picture. So here we are today, and unfortunately, I'm glad there's a good turnout. I think the people are here to support you. I believe you do need to do whatever is necessary to preserve the agreements and the rights of the town of Miami Lakes, our residents, and if there's anything I or any of us can do, we're here to support you 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And to bring this full circle, we will open up public comments now. We'll be opening up public comments now. Just a reminder, I know that now we got all the clapping and cheering out of the way. Please be respectful of each other. This building isn't owned by any one individual, it's owned by the people. So you might disagree with somebody's opinion, might agree, so no booing or cheering. Please respect that. And we'll open up. Go over the new rules of public comment. No comment. Yep. So just as an update, you don't need any public comment cards here in the town of Miami Lakes. Anyone wishing to speak can just come up and line up to speak. Do it in an orderly fashion. You don't have to raise your hand either. Just come up to speak, say your name, your address. You have 3 minutes. There's a lot of folks that want to speak. You have a 3-minute clock. You have 3 minutes. So once that clock beeps, I'm going to thank you, and please give the time to the next person. But again, no cheering, no booing. Let's keep our decorum. We got it already out of our system. So welcome, Hope. Welcome, Hope.
Esperanza Reynolds, 8465 Mentieth Terrace. God works in mysterious ways. An investigative report by Channel 23, Erika Carrillo, surfacing traffic issues is the catalyst that has brought us together as concerned communities, including Hialeah, Miami Lakes, and Palm Springs North. Lack of planning, overbuilding, government abuse through taxation without representation, special taxing district charges, now called community development districts, on the new neighborhoods west of I-75 have Hialeah owners facing 27 years of tax obligation hardly anyone understood when they purchased their homes, something that to our surprise is also happening with the Lennar community built on the east side by 154th. To add insult to injury, the removal of 2 lanes from 826 Palmetto Expressway, as they say in Spanish, le ha puesto la tapa al pomo. And another great report by Channel 23 revealed that Senator Rick Scott at a state level is responsible for this abuse of taxpayers. Voters have not given permission for the tolls that are springing up all over and throughout Florida. Taxation without representation. So the birth of this nation, an event called the Boston Tea Party, the abuse of the people of Florida who earn an average of $45,000 a year with taxes through non-ad valorem charges, road tolls, and Florida Power and Light franchise fees, among the many new taxes you want to place on the weary shoulders, leave us considering a Cuban coffee revolution. As for the bridges, flow our communities out to I-75 through roundabouts or exchanges without crossing desperate commuters to encounter gridlock traffic on the other side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esperanza. And I apologize to the next speakers. Since we are the first city in the nation to allow remote public comments, we have 3 folks that have been waiting in the queue for a while now, way before a meeting even started, so I know they've been waiting for a while. Don, if you want to get those folks real quick, and we'll come right back. Per the clerk, correct, Madam Clerk? Don? Don, do you have the, well, we'll go to the next public comment. Go ahead. We'll go back to them once Don fixes that issue. Whoever likes. Name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Ed Carrera, 8460 Northwest 185th Street, Palm Springs North. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Also, I want to commend you on fixing the gridlock on 154. My wife travels back and forth on 154 from almost Red Road back into PSN, and you guys, what you did with the traffic control there underneath the Palmetto makes it great. And we have friends that use 154 in the mornings to get there, and they said that what you've done has gone a long way to helping. So, you didn't look at who caused it or the history or agreements you had. You saw the problem and you did something about it. And this is what you need to do here. This is sounding like a giant divorce court. Meanwhile, the kids, us, are getting hurt by all this, by the arguing between the parties. The reality is that people don't really want to come in the morning into Miami Lakes, even though it's a beautiful town. Unfortunately, Miami Lakes has the only access to the Palmetto for all these people. Palm Springs North has the only access to I-75 for all these people. So what you guys maybe need to work with the county and the state is provide the people what they need. That'll keep them from going through your town. And that is ramps on I-75, ramps to the Turnpike. They just redid that whole exchange, I-75 and the Turnpike. They didn't put a southbound access. Wow, great idea, huh? Nobody wants to go south? I have to go 138th and fight the dump trucks every morning to go south on the Turnpike. So forget all this arguing back and forth and, you know, the agreements that you made, realize that the reality of it is you got thousands of people west of I-75. Yes, they're not Miami Lakers, but you also have Palm Springs North, all the people north of you that need to get where they need to go, get the kids to school, get to work. So provide access for them. Work on that solves the problem, not just on fighting to try and keep them out. I thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Alex Ariano, 8465 Mentieth Terrace. We have struggled to address many issues with local and county governments because given 2 or 3 minutes to prepare rather careful messages is not sufficient time to get the point across. To add to the stress placed on Americans today, governments at all levels concoct plans, budgets, master plans, and visions that turn into the nightmare of a population. $23 trillion in debt at the federal level, which equates to over $100,000 per person. Lack of planning, lack of coordination and communications over building and agencies putting impediments in our way, treating us like rats in a psychological experiment, removing lanes from the Palmetto only to pay to be on express lanes that as they move faster make some feel important and others feel left behind. The have and the have-not division of society that migrates ideologies to socialism or communism. And this happens when, for the most part, we have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican Council. What are you trying to do, lose the country? No bridge should open before the infrastructure on either side is capable of handling the oncoming traffic. Before bridges are open, we ought to consider roundabouts or exchanges that flow traffic out of communities, providing relief to all communities that today find themselves in total gridlock. The removal of Palmetto Expressway traffic lanes is unacceptable. We have petitioned Senator Rick Scott for the removal of tolls that are forcing many to avoid certain roads as they can't afford the cost. We speak of mental health as the most important issue today. When we see people under such stress that drive them to act outside the norm, well, the conduct of root cause analysis and identify what role, if any, are you playing on the aggravation of citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Hello. My name is James McGrath, 7300 Poinciana Court, Miami Lakes. I've been a resident here since 1983. Now, when we speak about on the other side, when Hialeah took over west of 75, we, Miami Lakes, could have also taken it and bought it. Of what I understand, the reason we didn't is because it was so polluted, it would cost so much to have checks done, and there'd be so many cancer cases in 20 years from the people who would live in the buildings built there, that we could not afford the lawsuits. So we didn't take it. So it became part of Hialeah. And to the lawyer, I would like to ask, the bridges that you speak about at 170th and 154th, we own the roads, fine. Who owns the bridges? If you don't mind me asking, you can answer. I want to know who owns the bridges themselves.
We'll get to those answers at the end of public comments. So
Okay, does Miami Lakes own the bridges?
we don't go back and forth during public comments, but the state of Florida owns the bridges.
I'm not
But
being coy.
We'll go from there.
We don't own the bridges.
I'll
Miami Lakes
answer it
does not own
later.
the bridges.
When there's discussion between
Okay,
the
but
council,
we
I'll
do
answer.
own
We'll
the
address.
roads. We do own the roads on the east side of the bridges. I think that's correct. I would like to know if we accept county money or state money for those roads, which again you won't answer. If we do not, why can't we block them? You don't want to answer, fine.
Sir, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to do it when they deliberate. We don't typically go back and forth in public comments. I'll answer this question when we're deliberating as a body
Okay.
before all of you.
We'll get back to all your
When we're
concerns
here?
during deliberation.
When everybody's
Yes.
here, or when you're,
Right, when we're done with public comments.
Exactly,
okay,
in a little while.
okay. The bridge is being open. You talk about deals between Hialeah and Miami Lakes, but the bridges are owned by the Department of Transportation, the FDOT. It's up to them. It's not up to any deal between Miami and Hialeah. Our roads are, though. If we own the roads on this side, we can block them. You talk about the bridges, they're not ours. No matter what deal was made, we have to live with it, because the deal was made with people who don't own the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
John Roger, 6933 Northwest 173rd. I'm a resident of what they call Country Club, but I consider myself a Miami Laker. I spend most of my time here. My family spends their time here. We're trying our best to move in someday. We came to this area for a very specific reason. Both of my children have autism. I have Asperger's. My wife is blind. We love this community, and we have a very special school that currently is housed by the Country Club Middle School, which is known as the South Florida Autism Charter School. It's a school unlike any other, where it offers the opportunity for children like mine who can't speak, who don't understand much of anything, to have a place to go where they're able to be nurtured properly and given opportunity. It's helped my oldest son to finally learn how to speak after 3 years. They've been working very hard to build their own campus, a place where their own people, our kids, they can go to without having to be pushed around or shoved around in corners because you're interfering with the other schools or interfering with the community in a certain way, because we're different times, and our kids can't always rush through things. They get scared, they get afraid. So they bought this land, they got it across the street there, and all I'm trying to say is, I know the bridges are a very controversial issue. I'm disappointed that the folks in Hialeah had some choice words to say about people who live here, because that's not what we are. But I do want to see the 170th Bridge open. But I think it can be done a better way. I've heard stories of connecting it to the Turnpike. You know, Miami Gardens is a better option for the Turnpike. It's a road that goes all the way down to the ocean. Why don't they work on that? But the 170th Bridge could be a great community bridge. A two-lane road, roundabouts, one-way turns, just to connect the two communities so that we can go back and forth. Because when they open that school, I'm still going to live in Miami Lakes. I don't want to leave. I love our town. But I'd love to go across that bridge and take my kids there and know that I'm safe, instead of having to drive all the way down to 138th, back over 97th, come all the way back up, and all that traffic. And I know you all know that traffic is fun. But the 154th Bridge, I've heard the arguments. I've seen what everybody's said. I've seen the agreements you guys have. The park is a wonderful idea. It puts us on the map. An opportunity for people to come and say, look at this unique park area that we have. It's a benefit for both towns. To argue to open it was silly. But the 170th Bridge could be a great community connection, not one where people come and pass through just to come through to get to the next road. If it's done right, it'd be a great community connection for all of us. And that's what I would like to see done, if there's any way of making it happen. Because I'm a Miami Laker, and I love this town, and I can't wait to come back to it. And I think there's a lot of folks like me, and folks that even go to our school, who are looking forward to being able to just take that 5-minute drive across that bridge, drop off their kids, maybe go to work there, and come back to our town without having to wait 30 minutes each way. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hi, my name is Derek Cintron. I live at 14821 Lewis Road. I wanted to commend the town attorney for really presenting what seems to be a very solid case with regards to our ownership of the roads. I don't think that's disputable at all, which is great news. Like that gentleman said, we could at least effectively block on our side any attempt to do something that's harmful to our town. But with regards to the other side, I do believe that the poor residents of that area, that new development over there, are getting a raw deal, and I don't think it would be bad if they gave themselves access to 75. If our side doesn't want it, so be it. There's ways to make ramps on these roads where you could have access from either side without cross-through. It is possible, and that's always an option. A lot of times I know that they've said that the 87th Avenue connection to the Gratigny or to the to I-75, which would lead to Gratigny, is not possible going southbound, but I think that would be another relief valve, and I think it very much is possible. I've seen ramps in California and in Los Angeles that are very tight, and they're able to put one like that there, for sure. Just to wrap up with regards to our upcoming battle with with the county, because I see that as inevitable. I'm 100% certain the county is going to push for it. It's such a bad idea anyway. Just, I mean, you know, I printed out this picture of 154th Street in the afternoon, which you all are very familiar with, but for everybody back there, it's, you know, what we sit in every day. And just to think, for anyone to suggest that this here is a solution to anyone else's problem is laughable to me. This isn't getting anybody anywhere. So I think we have a lot of legs to stand on there, and I would just encourage the town attorney and you guys on the council to just really fight these guys. It may cost you some, you know, some goodwill from the county. It may cost you some ill will, or it may cause you some ill will from the mayor of Hialeah, which I think is no great loss considering his recent comments, but it's worth it. It's worth the fight, and it's worth, you know, possibly burning those bridges to preserve what we have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. J.C. Fernandez, 7963 Northwest 163rd Terrace. I live in the town. I work in the town. My kids go to school in the town. I vehemently oppose opening either bridge. And for the record, I think that I speak on behalf of many of my neighbors. We know that, I think this gentleman said it best, and they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, right? We can't move on 154 or 170th. 170th Street is a nightmare. I live in Royal Oaks, in the Royal Oaks community. What I believe what would happen if they did open up 170th is they would cross over, and to get to the Palmetto, to get access to the Palmetto, they would run through 82nd Avenue. Possibly 87th, but certainly if that backed up, they would use 82nd. So I urge you to fight it. You know, whatever we have to do to fight it, I think that we have the resources, and I think that the town would support you in that. So thank you.
Thank you, J.C.
Good evening. My name is Lilian Leon Gonzalez. I am a resident of the town, 7851 Northwest 169th Terrace, which by default makes me a sandwich. I am between 170 and 154th. It takes me about 20 minutes to get out of my house from 169 to 154th, and around another 25 minutes to get on the expressway. I appreciate the presentation of the town attorney. I think on a legal matter, and I'm not an attorney, we have a lot to go by, and I encourage the town, the councilman, the mayor to please grant you any permission for you to proceed forward. It's sad that Mr. Bobo decided to leave before we all have the opportunity to give our opinion, and I think we need to hold them all accountable for whatever negotiations are going behind our backs. It is speculated that there's a lot of special interest and reasons why these bridges need to be open, in addition to the need for Hialeah to have an infrastructure fix-up that they didn't come up with. I urge you to please represent us and not allow a special interest to damage the feeling of town that we have been privileged to enjoy so far. I respect the residents of Hialeah, but I decided to live in Miami Lakes for the quality of life, for the best opportunities that I can give my family. I want to preserve those. I hold you accountable to allow us to preserve those. Our taxes cover for those. Hialeah did not prepare. Hialeah can promise infrastructure from now until we go blue on the face. They're not going to be able to deliver. There's no way they can do that soon enough to alleviate their issues and ours. Please, I'm pretty sure that I represent a lot of the residents of the town, and with the permission of those I spoke before, do not allow neither one of those bridges to open. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, Assistant Mayor, and the rest of the council. My name is Susana Herrera, 14970 Dumbarton Place, Miami Lakes, Florida. The presentation on the legal grounds that we have, I find them very valid, and certainly it empowers us to want to take on a defense, but in my experience, nobody ever really wins when you go into litigation, so we should, at the very, very best, make an effort to try to work things out, because even when you win, you don't really win. So 2 years ago, when this whole thing was started, we kind of got together and we did town meetings, and I said people should be encouraged to think outside the box, you know. I feel for our neighbors in Hialeah, but I really think that and I'm going to include PSN and Miami Lakes, should not absorb the lack of responsibility from that town in the development of their municipality. That being said, how do we move forward? And I believe the former Mayor Slayton was saying the history about the bridges. He didn't know why they were there. They were there because they were built as a concession to get grounds for the I-75 that territory belonged to Lowell Dunn. And it was given as a concession to Lowell Dunn to give him access to his properties from one side to the next. It was never intended to be used as a highway, but I do agree with Mayor Slayton when he said that the expansion of 170, if you look at the aerial pictures there, they were intended to be a 4-lane highway, and it was removed because they decided it was 170. It doesn't take you anywhere. There's no connectivity there, so that's why DOT removed them, because there was no sense. But you do have the space to create what I've been hearing most of the residents come out and say, can we build ramps to give us access into I-75? Talk about millions of dollars of improvements on the intersection for I-75 and Palmetto, and millions of dollars for I-75 and Turnpike. We can look at 170th and create what I call the bridge design, ni pa ti, ni pa mi. That means it's not for you and it's not for me. It's for all the communities. You protect the communities. I presented this to the council 2 years ago. A lot of you guys were not here when I presented the council. It's a simple design. I work for an engineering firm that builds highway and bridges. I've put this design to all of my engineers, and they all concur on 170th. You have the space. You have even extra space that if you want to widen, you can, because that was reserved as a 4-lane structure, and you have the space at 170th. So, food for thought.
Oh.
Here it is.
Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Please line up.
Good evening. I had no expectation of speaking tonight. On my way here, when I was...
Your name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roger Gorin, 16100 Aberdeen Way. Trying to find the town hall, which I knew was here. I was really dismayed by the walls that are around the town hall. I don't know how this government has pigeonholed themselves in this corner and allowed themselves to be surrounded, your sunshine blocked off, by all of these buildings that are going to bring thousands of people here and multi-thousands of cars to Ludlam to 67th Avenue. I implore you guys to do whatever you can to stop the traffic down there. You haven't stopped it here. It's only going to get worse at this end, and at the other end of Miami Lakes, I see the same issue. Where talk about bottlenecks, we have 2 bottlenecks, and the tapon is on both ends. And I just say you guys need to fight. I don't have great expectations that you guys are going to be able to fight the county and another big city when this was allowed to happen to your own town hall. I just don't, I'm very disappointed, and I hope I see things getting better, specifically with the traffic. I'm New York City born and bred. I know about traffic, and this is getting as bad as anything I've known in New York City. So I wish you all luck, and we really need to fight this issue. It's very, very strong, and we need it. And that's all I hear from town people when we sit. I go to the bakery, we have coffee, we sit and talk, and the first thing that comes up, well, besides the heat and the rain now, is the traffic. And the traffic not only in Miami, but specifically in Miami Lakes. So I wish you guys luck. You really need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger.
Good evening, everyone. George Elena, Chapter 119, exemption. First of all, let me say I was really impressed with the attorney's presentation. A lot of the points that he made, I was actually going to speak on, but don't need to do that anymore. But what I am going to do is I'm going to speak on a topic which I really haven't heard much conversation on, and that's the public safety aspect of this whole thing. Okay? From my background, as most of you know, okay, public safety is right up my wheelhouse. All right? And there's a saying that I've used for many years in regards to time. Time is brain, time is heart muscle, and time is traffic. Okay, when you suffer a cardiac arrest, you got about 4 to 6 minutes before brain damage sets in. After about 10 minutes, irreversible brain damage sets in. Okay, the gridlock that we have on 154 and other arteries in this town right now causes a delay. If anybody has stood out there on 154 and 77 Court, when Station 64 tries to exit their station, they have a hard time doing it during the rush hour times of the day. Okay. Now, let's imagine as bad as traffic is right now, today, and by the way, I feel bad for those people on the west side of I-75. They were lied to. They were lied to by the developer. They were lied to by the mayor. They've been lied to by the town council. Lies, lies, and lies. And they're trying to solve their problem, save face, by throwing this problem onto us. But if on average, a home, every home that you can think of, produces 2 vehicles, 2 cars, there's 3,000 over there now. There's like another 3,000 or 4,000 that are slated to come online in the next few years. Traffic from the mega mall, plus all the commercial traffic. Just do the math. Just right now, we're looking at possibly 6,000 cars coming across those bridges every morning. So if we have gridlock now, if public safety is impacted right now, what's that going to mean? And I don't like to be an alarmist, but people are going to die, plain and simple, because of the lack of planning, the lack of infrastructure. Okay? I don't appreciate being called a racist. All this, everybody needs to sit down, analyze the problem without the emotional aspect of it, without the political aspects of it, and come up with a reasonable solution that's good for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
My name is Hector Aleman, 8442 Northwest 166 Terrace. Well, I'd like to thank first the mayor and the council members for setting up this opportunity for us as citizens to speak and voice our opinions. And a lot of them already have said a lot of what's already in our minds. And first of all, the presentation that the town attorney gave is very educational, and also I believe is rock solid. And several concerns that I have is, one of the things is I use 154th Street every morning to get to Palmetto Expressway. And the fact that there's already 3 lights that we have to plant, and they're not very well coordinated, creates already a backup as it is. So the level of service right now there in the peak hours is probably about a level D. If you open up any other major arterial roads like the bridge of 154 without any consideration, you will probably have, or you will have a parking lot in there, a level F, which is not a good traffic design. The other concern that I have is, which hasn't been mentioned here, is if that mega mall ever opens, you're going to have a lot of impact from traffic coming in, possibility if those bridges are ever open. So those are things that have to be also considered. I feel bad for the people of the city of Hialeah, but the fact that opening that bridge on 154th Street is not going to be a solution for them or for us. And I would like to see, I've been to the city of New York, and I love to walk through that elevated park. And I really strongly support the fact that I would love to see, and somebody mentioned it already, this will put the town of Miami Lakes on the map if we are able to open that bridge and make it into an elevated park. A lot of people will come, it will be a quality of life improvement, and I think that that will be the best route to go at this point. And please, I support the fact that we would need to defend our position with the county on that issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hector.
Good evening, everyone. Claudia Luces, 8220 Menteith Terrace, Miami Lakes, Florida. Let me first start off by thanking Councilwoman Ruano for making the statement that you did prior to the translation. I think it's important to understand and to highlight to the community at large that the residents of Miami Lakes are not racists. We are simply trying to protect our quality of life. The narrative has been, I guess, created that by opening up 154 or 170th, we are going to provide traffic relief to a very congested area. That is not so. That is not going to happen. As somebody pointed out, 154 is the only access to the Palmetto. Where do you think everyone's going to go? Whether you come down 170th or 154. That's exactly where they're going to go, down 154. How early are we going to have to wake up to take our kids to school? Our schools open at 7:30 a.m. You can't drop them off any earlier. Who's going to write the letter to the parents or to the employers because the parents can't get to work on time? Think about the repercussions that are going to come if these bridges open. I understand there's an issue over there. We all do. But thankfully, I think Carlos Hernandez at this point has addressed some of these concerns. Apparently there are no fire concerns, there are no police concerns, there are schools, okay? And now there's additional avenues. So what is the need to open up the bridges? There is none, okay? I've heard the comment made, well, we spent millions of dollars on the bridges. We spent millions of dollars on the Marlins Park. You want to talk about wasteful spending? So please, okay? Now we spent additional monies on putting on red lights and green lights at the entrance ramps of 154. Had they actually come here, maybe they would have noticed that our traffic doesn't move in the morning. There really is no need for the traffic signal. We can barely merge onto it as it is. The traffic lights on I-95 don't function. We paid for them, taxpayer dollar. They don't function. They were done away with. Sometimes we build things that we just do not need. We have been gridlocked now by the Department of Transportation because they have taken 2 lanes away from us. What do you think is going to happen when those bridges open? Who's going to watch over and make sure that the commercial traffic, the commercial trucks don't come over the bridges? Are we going to have to pay more for police overtime so we can have them manage that too? Enough is enough. I understand there's concerns. As a matter of fact, here we go. I know you didn't have any.
No, thank you, Claudia. Yeah, I'm not extending any time for anybody, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha Mendez, 7000 Glen Eagle Drive. I'm not going to repeat what everybody here is for. They're here to let you know that we're behind you. Because I know your vote. I know how you stand on 154 for sure, 170, but I know how the vote went. I want you to know, and I am a firm believer in money is better in my pocket than yours. That's my philosophy in life. This has to go to the end. This cannot be let go. This cannot be ignored. This cannot be set aside. This cannot be kicked down the road anymore. And if it takes from my pocket to protect the town, take the money from my pocket. Thank you.
Thank you, Mita.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Jose Mijares, 15571 Northwest 83rd Place. I just got to say a few little things like I've been here since 1994 in Miami Lakes, and I do miss my cows tremendously. And, you know, I know we're talking about these bridges and all that, but you guys have more jurisdiction on just what you build in Miami Lakes, like all these buildings around here. Okay, I don't know if it was part of you guys or not. I'm not a political guy or anything like that. But the problem is not the bridges. The problem is that every city in Dade County and Broward County, we have overbuilt. You go down anywhere, you see buildings that are going 6, 7, 8 stories high. What are we going to do? You're not going to build any more roads, right? Stop the overbuilding. Stop the cancer before it starts, okay? By prevention. And that's what you need to do, okay? Now we have this problem. Stacey, very well presentation. I admire you. I've known you for a long time. Very good. But that's just, now we're stopping the end of cancer, stage 4, 5 cancer. Stop it before we begin. Stop the overbuild. And Mayor, I don't know if you could do this or not. I would sit with every other mayor in this city, in this county, in this whatever, South Florida, and drive home that traffic is going to get worse no matter what we do if we don't stop the overbuild. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, everybody. My name is Andres Suarez, 3994 Northwest 168 Terrace. I lived very near 178th and 87th Avenue. That influx of traffic will most definitely increase my commute to work and to school, the school my children, they go to Bob Graham, they most definitely will affect it. I appreciate what the other gentleman was saying, that this is not about sympathy to our neighbors, that we want to remain isolated, or we don't want open ways back and forth to other cities. It's about fixing our own problems before we can demand of our neighbors to fix them for us. The city of Hialeah did very poor planning in constructing and allowing the construction of so many properties without having the infrastructure for it. The town of Miami Lakes is not responsible or guilty for it. It should not carry the cost that it's going to take to upkeep these roads, because not only with the traffic is going to worsen the traffic, is going to raise the amount of money that we have to invest in our roads to be able to control that traffic. The more cars, the more the roads are going to go bad. We're going to need more cops to keep up with the security, with the safety, with the public safety. The more access roads that we have is going to bring probably more, I'm sorry, but it's going to bring more crime. I'm not saying that it's going to bring crime from the other city of Hialeah. I'm not implying that at all. But unfortunately, the more access roads there are, the more problems we have. As it is, we already have problems with people racing down 87th Avenue constantly. I hear comments all the time about people complaining about cars speeding through through 87th Avenue. I see police officers over there constantly trying to resolve that situation. We see ATVs coming from either from Miami Lakes or coming from Palm Springs North. So we have many issues that we have to resolve at first as it is as a city, and we shouldn't be putting the burden of fixing somebody else's problems. So I do appreciate the town's attorney taking the time to make the presentation so we all understand the agreements. Now, we also heard that the city of Hialeah, they have the infrastructure to have their fire department, their police department, and they're not going to cross through Miami Lakes. But I'm sorry, I will not believe that. If there is traffic, they will find the best way to get to the point that they need to do, because that is what they need to do. So that is just plain out lie, that they're not going to cut out through Miami Lakes, because that will happen. So I implore you to please don't let this go. And I think I represent many of the people here that will agree with you that this is not something acceptable to open any of these two bridges. Thank you.
Thank you, Andres.
Good evening, Maribel Balbin, 8346 Dundee Terrace. Thank you, Councilwoman Ruano, for calling out bullying, which is what that was. I just wanted to say two things. One, pretty much echoing everything that Wayne Slayton said. I was here when all of that happened. I witnessed a lot of those conversations, a lot of those agreements, a lot of that is now trying to be put in the past. There are contracts signed between the cities. There was commitments made to 170th and Palm Springs North that was not going to open. I'm sorry, but Commissioner Diaz does not live in Miami Lakes, neither does Commissioner Bobo. And they're the people making the decisions, and I am speaking to you under the assumption that you are all opposing all of this, that you are all on the side of all the citizens of Miami Lakes. So I'm not here asking you to do anything, because I'm assuming from my position here that this is where you're at, and that's where I'm at. The second thing I was going to say was about the Palmetto Expressway and the big deal with the express lanes. Wednesday morning, I spent 1 hour between 154 and 103. 1 hour sitting in my car listening to a radio. I was supposed to be at a radio station, so I was listening and taking photos and looking how 3 or 4 cars would fly by me, and I'm sitting there and I don't have the opportunity to even get in if I wanted to use it. So I have spoken to Representative Cindy Polo, and the one thing that I would like to, for her and to everybody else, to ask DOT, if we can remove at least 1 mile, if we can start that express lane a mile from where it starts right now, at least it will give us back our lanes. We will not have the 3 lanes, we will have our 4 lanes like everybody else. And if you want to get on the express lane, you will have that opportunity if you're a Miami Laker. I take express lanes on I-95. I'm not opposed to it. We are not able to get in the express lanes. Neither does Hialeah, by the way. It just flies over Hialeah. So that's a request that I'm making, a suggestion that I'm making, and I hope that maybe it can be considered, and it somehow will alleviate the fact that I don't sit for an hour just between 2 exits in Miami Lakes. So, and thank you very much for offering the opportunity.
Thank you, Maribel.
My name is Diane Reynos. I live in 17142 Northwest 88th Street. I'm a one-way street to 170. Actually, my whole family is, because we all moved there. So I have my house, my mother, my aunt, we all live in that neighborhood. Our neighborhood is it's small. But that 170, we have Matter Lakes right next, 2 blocks away, which traffic is challenging in the mornings. And we have Matter Gardens, which are students that parents go into our communities at all times, and it's a bit traffic at most. 170 was always there. Yes, the bridge is there. But the thing is that we do not agree with this at all. We're opposed to it because we have no way out of it. We're a one-way street there. We don't have any other way out. This 170 is literally, there's houses in front of this. It's not like they don't have anywhere else to go. And you're bringing traffic in. If we do what Madeline said at one point to take it out, I have no problem with it. But it's coming into us. And there's no way, and I would love if any of you guys go to our communities in Halloween. We pretty much are all on the street. I don't think that will happen again after this happens. So that's my comment to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Celia Rocco. I'm at 6946 Holly Road. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'd like to first foremost thank the attorney for the excellent presentation. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, but after his presentation, I think we have a pretty solid case. All the legalities and the, I don't know the verbiage, but it seems like a solid case, so it should be a win-win situation. Two wrongs don't make a right. Their lack of planning cannot be our problem. Their lack of infrastructure cannot be our problem. There's a reason I bought here. There's a reason why we all want to live in Miami Lakes, and the quality of life that we have here, we do, and the reason that we pay the taxes that we do. So there really shouldn't be, I mean, it's great to be, you know, kind to everybody, but I don't see our town being responsible for the lack of planning on their side. So every time I see something on social media, I always say, you know, my comment is, remember who you vote for next time, because there's a reason I chose Miami Lakes. There's a reason why I want this quality of life. And I shouldn't have to pay for, and I come from Hialeah, by the way. You know, I was raised in Hialeah. But if I chose this now, there's a reason for it, and I don't think my quality, our quality of life should be disturbed because of a lack of planning. So again, I thank you, and the attorney explained it excellently, that I was like, all right, so there's no question. It's very legal. It looks like a very solid case. So I hope that we move forward and neither bridge is open, because 154, I've seen people walking, getting ahead way faster than me in a car. So it's like if you're in New York, but we're not, you know. So I thank you for your service, and I pray that we find the correct solution in closing this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Going once, going twice. Public comments is officially closed. Madam Clerk, I know there were some folks trying to get back on, and I know they're watching from home, so if you still want to do the remote public comments, I know there's an issue with them jumping in and out and waiting on the queue, so. But if you're still watching from home, please just jump in, and we'll be more than happy whenever you
We
pop
had three.
in.
We had three individuals, but they didn't leave their contact information.
Got it. Now that public comments is closed, Councilman Collazo.
Thank you, Mayor. And first of all, I want to start off by thanking each and every one of you that took the time and the opportunity to come up here and speak and participate in the meeting. I'm going to tell you, it's been a very long time since we've seen this chamber this full, and I can almost see from everybody here that they're very supportive of this cause. One of the persons in public comment stated, I am sure that you are all on the same page, and I can speak emphatically that I believe we are. But the reason why I called this meeting was because some of us that have been elected more recently than others maybe haven't had the same opportunity, the same privilege that maybe some of us that have been here on a longer tenure have had. And I want to reiterate something that was touched upon. As a community, as your elected body, we chose to do our own traffic study. We didn't take what people were telling us that it wasn't going to have an impact on our community. We built out different scenarios, whether the Dream Mall was built, whether there was going to be future development. We took into consideration every possible situation. And emphatically, the answer was that opening up either one of those bridges would be catastrophic to our community. And what do I mean by catastrophic to our community? Even if it was just 1%, because I think the number that came back, and Councilwoman Morano could correct me, I think it was 3%. They said the impact of traffic, if you opened up 170th Bridge and you had all these other connectors, as Mr. Gastesi alluded to, the connection to the Gratney, the connection under the Palmetto, all of these other connections, even if we had the best case scenario and we still opened up 170th, we still had an impact to our community. So there was no doubt in my mind from day one that opening up those bridges was not an option. So going back to that period in time where Mr. Gustesi highlights that the county and certain other people started making moves to open up those bridges, unbeknownst to us, I felt that we had to have this meeting again. Not only to be honest with this community, but to make a very clear point to everybody where we each stood. And there be no doubt on what we needed to do moving forward. So I wanted to say that because I wanted to give you guys the background to why I called this meeting. I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to hear from our paid staff, but I also wanted to make it a point tonight to make it very clear where we stood and what we needed to do to move forward. And with regards to making a motion, after everybody speaks, I have some ideas that I'd like to propose and make some motions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to open up my remarks.
And we'll go with Councilman Dieguez on all the way down. And feel more than welcome anybody along the way if there's any motions, anything you want to put on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll start off the motion practice, if you will, to use some legal terms there. But one of the reasons why I wanted to speak first was really kind of to admonish my colleagues that as we speak tonight to keep in mind that we're being recorded. And so what we say tonight could end up in a court of law. So be very cautious in the remarks that we say. Don't think out loud. You know, do that in private with our attorneys. And also, you know, I wouldn't even go as far as to even opine on what your belief on the success on the merits of the case are, unless, of course, you're going to say that they're great, you know, because it's important that what we say be in sync and that it not step on our own feet as we get ready to move forward. So with that said, I'm going to start off the motion practice by moving that we direct the town administration and the town attorney to begin dispute resolution procedures with respect to the 170th Street Bridge, and secondly, to authorize them to begin litigation or authorize them to pursue litigation as to both bridges in their discretion. That is my motion.
I'll second.
Discussion just on the motion, council, please, just on this motion. You want to, Councilman Dieguez, in closing?
Yeah, in essence, in closing, I've already put my thoughts on this matter on the record. I've publicized what those thoughts are. I've engaged in back and forth with residents from the other side of the bridge. So I don't want to beat that any further beyond what's been said here. Rather, I just wanted to take a moment to sort of supplement that by addressing some of the issues that were raised from the audience tonight. So Mayor Slayton, for example, spoke as to the public safety aspect, and I get what he was trying to say as far as which jurisdiction would be responsible for answering emergency calls. But I did want to point out, though, that under a procedure involving, I believe it's called mutual aid, there is a situation in which the county may be called in to help out and supplement services that Hialeah needs for emergency, specifically for fire. So my concern as to the public safety aspect, aside from, as Mr. Llerena pointed out, with the traffic and how that slows down response times, the fact that, as it's been relayed to me, it appears as if mutual aid is utilized by the city of Hialeah already to a great degree. And my concern is that after we fought for so long to get a station on at Station 64, rather a fire rescue truck at Station 64, I think that if we open ourselves up to making it easier for them to utilize that fire rescue truck as part of a call for mutual aid, I think we're also hurting ourselves, because that truck not only services Miami Lakes, it services PSN and the other surrounding unincorporated areas. So I do believe that there is a public safety component in that respect too, notwithstanding that the mutual aid requirements are supposed to be, you know, make it so that it is a rare occurrence. The last thing I wanted to point out is I believe it's Mr. Ed Herrera from PSN that was talking about reaching an amicable solution. And I can tell you, sir, that we have tried. We have reached out to FDOT before as to the issue of the I-75 ramps. They did not seem receptive at the time. Maybe things will be different now that our commissioners are coming around to working with us on that. I know that I myself have in the past, before I was elected, reached out to some of the Hialeah officials at least 2 years ago at the earliest, to tell them, hey, this is coming down the pike. You guys might want to reach out to the town and kind of see how we can all work together to resolve this issue, especially as to 170th, where there were less legal complications. And unfortunately, nothing came of that. But it's not for a lack of trying. And so, again, all my other thoughts are on the record. I just wanted to supplement those thoughts by responding to the issues you raised. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I hope everyone will support the motion.
Thank you, Councilman Dieguez. Madam Clerk, you want to repeat the motion?
Yes, the motion is to move for the town attorney to begin the dispute resolution procedures on 170th and also authorizing him to start litigation as needed.
Let me go to Councilman Collazo, then I'll go to the town attorney so he can clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to highlight one item on the motion that I think has been alluded to, and I know Susana Herrera brought her design, which talks about an alternative that does not allow any traffic from that side or this side to go in either direction, but has slipways that allow traffic to go onto 170th. I know that issue has been discussed. I'm sorry, from 170th to I-75. I do want that issue explored. I have never heard anybody give me a definitive answer whether that's an option or not. I know we've raised it several times. I know we've danced about it. We tiptoed it. But I think that issue needs to be brought to a head once and for all. So I want a clear, definitive answer. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Is that an option? And if it's not a viable option, then I'll rest my case. But I need a definitive answer, and I'd like to include that as part of the dispute resolution process.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo, and also those were some. If you want to,
Could you repeat your part, the last part that you just stated for the record?
A design was presented by Ms. Susana Herrera in the audience. I know several people have talked about this design. It's been discussed as an alternative to the bridges that allows for connectivity at 170th with on-ramps only in both directions to I-75. I wanted that to be explored as a possibility as well, and I wanted staff to report back. I've heard many different people talk about the design, but I have never heard, I've never had any definitive feedback if that was a possibility or not.
His motion for the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, we're back onto the main motion as amended. Along the lines as to what Councilman Collazo was stating, and that's something that the county mayor had also mentioned very briefly. And Mr. Manager, there was a ramp, I believe the county mayor and his staff were talking about 183rd and 97th to I-75. Do you recall?
Yeah, I believe that he was referring to that he wanted to have a ramp on 170th and I-75.
I know that they had said at some point that there was a possible ramp that FDOT was already working on in that area.
Yeah, that ramp was going to be from I-75 onto 97th Avenue, believe it or not. So everything kind of converges up there. So as you get close to 183rd Street, there is where 75, the turnpike's kind of edging in, 197th Avenue is squeezed in there, that they may have it in their design. Dade County, I'm not sure if any of their traffic folks are here. I know one of their attorneys was here. But that was one of the items that they said, because they didn't want the mall traffic to have to traverse the existing roadways. So it would be a direct route from 75 onto 97th Avenue to access the mall.
So, yeah, I'm 100% in with what Councilman Collazo was stating. Madam Clerk, back onto the main motion as amended. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Dieguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Collazo.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Dieguez, I know you had some other issues you wanted to address. No, you're done on your end. All right, Councilman Rodriguez.
Yep. I think
There's two things I want to talk about before I make a motion, because I wanted to address something that the town attorney mentioned. The first thing is I'm frustrated, and I thank Councilwoman Ruano for bringing this up. I'm frustrated by the fact that this was turned into a divisive issue. It's not a divisive issue. It's not us versus them. This is an issue of traffic. If the people on the west side of I-75 that think that that 154th is their solution, I'll tell them grass is not always greener on this side. You're going to be very upset the moment you cross over that bridge and hit rush hour deadlock traffic on 154th. So the fact that this was turned into a Hialeah versus Miami Lakes issue was very frustrating. The other thing the reason we're here in this posture right now is because of the lack of transparency that we were given. We've been asking for months, years, what's going on. These things were being done behind our back. So all of a sudden we have to take a more aggressive posture and say, no, this is not going to happen. We're going to take action. So those are the two items that essentially make this a frustrating process for me. This issue is premature. We were promised a bunch of traffic addressing issues. I-75 or Gratney connections on 87th Avenue and 67th Avenue, the Palmetto underpasses, and 170th to the Turnpike. All of those things have been discussed. We've told our residents that they're coming, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from under us, and these bridges are the front and center with none of those items being even moved an inch forward. So this entire discussion is premature, in my opinion, until those items are addressed, and then we can assess where our traffic issue is. The issue that I would like to address is the possibility of starting the bridge park, at least a portion on our side of 154th. Everyone has agreed that that's something that we all want to see. The residents have told us that that's something that they would like to see. It would make it a lot more difficult if the county has to take an aggressive posture towards us to say, no, you cannot build that bridge that you've all agreed on and we've agreed on and the city of Hialeah has agreed on. I think that puts us in a better position than playing defense. It puts us on an offensive and forces them to play defense against us. So I would make a motion to consider starting the construction of the 154th Bridge Park, at least on the initial portion of 154th.
I'll second.
Discussion on Councilman Rodriguez's motion. Vice Mayor.
Listen, the Bridge Park idea was a great idea. Whoever came up with the Bridge Park idea was genius. Just putting that out on the record. So I got to give myself credit. Oh, just kidding. All right. No, listen. At the end of the day, when I suggested the bridge park, the city of Hialeah mayor came here to this chamber and completely agreed with the bridge park. The next month, we attended a meeting in Hialeah with a resolution from the city of Hialeah, not just agreeing to the bridge park, but agreeing to develop their side and make a park on their side. So that was something that Hialeah agreed to, right? And it's a shame that Commissioner Diaz feels that he's going to try to railroad that through. And I've personally told him that it's not going to happen. That 154 is off limits. And we have some agreements, not just with that, but we have the agreements with the bridge park. So I'm all in favor of starting the bridge park on our side. And I think that it's important for us to look at that aspect of it's not just going to benefit Miami Lakes. The design of this park encourages and benefits the residents of the other side of Hialeah. All right? And so I understand what they're going through, but I think that bridge park concept is a benefit to them, and maybe crossing over, we've built bike lanes, we've built greenways, maybe the kids don't have to be transported by car. And then it'll be a nice footpath over to if they have to get to the school. There's a direct path to Barbara Goldman from that bridge park. Once we open it up, that takes them right, without major impact of traffic, right to Barbara Goldman, and there's routes to Bob Graham. So it was addressed and looked at, and I'm in full support of starting the bridge park.
Any further discussion on this matter? Councilman Alvarez. Just on this motion, on the bridge part.
I want to commend you, Councilmember Rodriguez, on bringing this motion up. When we took oath of office here, I think in an agreement with all of us is to preserve the quality of life here in Miami Lakes. And it saddens me that this has become a Hialeah Miami Lakes thing. It's not a Hialeah Miami Lakes here thing. Our position as elected officials is to preserve the quality of life of our town. And I think your motion in bringing the linear park, the bridge park, and moving forward with that not only adds green space, but also helps and assists and aids with the quality of life of our town. And it's sad that this has become that topic, but at the end of the day, we're here to represent our town, we're here to represent our residents. What we inherit is our issues, and as a council and as a mayor, we will deal with those local issues here, but we should not inherit another town or another city's problems, and it shouldn't be coming here to our town of Miami Lakes.
And Councilman Rodriguez, just for clarification, you want this to happen sooner rather than later, like tomorrow, next week? I mean, that's how fast?
I would love them to start planting trees next week if we could. I know that may be a bit ambitious, Mr. Manager, but I know that the plans are there, at least for there's not a lot of infrastructure that's part of this park. A couple walkways, some trees, grass, green space. It's not terribly complicated process.
Yeah, obviously, as Mr. Castesi showed on the surveys that were up there, the town currently only owns that piece from the roundabout to where the fencing is.
Correct.
So we have limited area where we can initiate this project. FDOT, even though they've provided us a letter in support of the entire project, but also encourages us, you know, it's a funny way of doing it. They encourage us to work with Dade County to get their approval, to get them on board, because they don't want to have feuding parties in this whole thing. So they've directed us, they support the project, but they want us to get the support of the county to move forward. So in the piece that we have another special call meeting a week from now. By then, we'll come back to you with a plan on exactly what we can identify funding. We'll have our staff provide that for you a week from today at our next meeting, and then we'll see what we can do between now and then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Councilman Collazo, then, or town attorney, or whichever way you want. Council.
No, I want to commend Councilman Rodriguez for bringing forward this being a solution, right, to address 154. But I did have a sidebar with the attorney, and there also seems to be, from the surveys, some land on 170th that belongs to us as well. So while we're in the spirit of planting trees and making green spaces and trying to beautify our community, I think that maybe the attorney should explain to us if there's any property on 170th that may benefit from some of these additional plantings.
170th is a little trickier. I'm trying to get those back up for you, but it's in your packet. Right. So the one that says Survey of Northwest 170th, that's like an overlay by our surveyor over an aerial photograph. On 170th, as you can see, the road proceeds to where, if you don't mind, if I could walk up to the podium. Yeah, I was hoping to get the mic. If you see where the street goes towards the west, you'll see that there's a black line there. That's where the guardrail is. There's a guardrail, there's an FDOT sign and everything else. But then that guardrail ends, and along the southern border of that street, there's another line that's still within FDOT property, and then it comes down pretty much to this little side road. Whereas on 154th, there's pretty much a bright line all the way up and down. Here, it jogs around a little bit. The other issue with 170th is that we own, I don't know, 55% of it there. Okay. Yeah, I was just told the surveyor's here. He did a good job very quickly with a lot of pressure from me to get it done on time, but he came through. He really did. So on 170th, it's a little trickier because not all of it's our property. So we got to be very careful that we're not trespassing on the county's property, just like I'm complaining about them trespassing on our property. There, and I've tried to talk to staff about different alternatives and things like that. They have several concerns. I believe that they should be directed to come up with some ideas that are plausible, but it's not easy. Just based on boundaries and geography and a canal and things like that, it's not easy, but I have some ideas with them, but I think at least direct them to come up with something to proceed with either more green space or whatever you deem appropriate. Also, one other thing that I'd like to show you. I can't read that either. This is the letter from FDOT, and I guess I'm going to step over there to read it because I can't see the way this copy was printed out. But I believe it says on January 23rd, 2007. By the way, this is from sorry, I found it. I'm looking at the wrong one.
I can read it, Raul.
Yeah, I can read it. The Florida Department of Transportation has reviewed Resolution 18-something from the town of Miami Lakes, directing the town manager to coordinate with FDOT to develop the passive park along Northwest 154th Street at Interstate 75, Section 2 of the town's resolution. Gina, can you read that?
I can read it.
Seeks FDOT's investment in the convention and...
Section 2 of the town's resolution seeks FDOT's involvement in the conversion and maintenance of a passive park on the bridge. As was requested in our response to the town on April 26, 2016, FDOT encourages the town to collaborate with Miami-Dade County to secure support for the proposed project. Since April 2016, the FDOT right-of-way office has coordinated with the town on their proposed use of the property along Northwest 154th Street at I-75. FDOT will circulate the request to surplus the right-of-way on both the east and west sides of I-75. It is the intent of FDOT to convey the property on the east side of the town of Miami Lakes and to convey the property on the west side to the city of Hialeah. FDOT will retain all the right-of-way within the limited access of I-75. FDOT supports the use of the bridge as pedestrian walkway only and not as a passive park. All decorative items such as planters will need to be movable for bridge inspections. FDOT does not support the use as an observation platform due to safety concerns. The proposed rendering shows spaces for viewing directly on top of the express lanes. The fences in the rendering may not be effective for falling protections and may be a distraction for drivers. This project may be eligible for Transportation Alternatives Program funding if it were part of the trail or trail system. FDOT will continue to work with the town on this project. If you have any questions, blah, 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 you can contact James Wolf, the District 6 Secretary.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Rodriguez.
Councilman Collazo, I think it's pretty clear from what the town attorney said that 170th is a little bit more issues, but 154th I think is very clear. The piece that we own, that we don't need to ask the county, we don't need to ask FDOT, we don't need to ask for permission to do something that is essentially phase one of a project that we've all approved. So my proposal is, let's start phase one. Let them tell us that we can't do it. Why can't we do this? Something that you guys have all agreed to. The county and the city of Hialeah and FDOT has given us approval. I know they want us to work with a group of individuals that's not working with us. So I think we should be on the offensive and start this phase one of this project.
Councilman Collazo.
I wholeheartedly agree that we should do 154. The reason why I bring up 170th is because if we don't start looking at those solutions now, then we're going to be a day late, dollar short, showing up to meetings like this on special call. So I want to give clear direction to look at whatever that alternative is, whether it's a different use, whether it's something that maybe we haven't even contemplated now. But it's clear that right now we're in the direction of 170th wouldn't be good for our community. Right? So what can 170th bring to our community that would be of a benefit?
Frankly, 170th is more pressing than 154th.
I'm not.
Yeah.
The direction that we gave you was to take all legal action necessary on 170th.
Exactly.
This takes nothing away from that direction.
Exactly.
170th is a priority from a legal standpoint.
Right.
This is in addition to the legal authority that we have given you to do this additional step at 154th. Right. So I think we can certainly exhaust all of our remedies from a legal perspective to file injunctions, force them to have all these communications through us and include us in future discussions, which is the most frustrating part of all of this. So yeah, again, this takes nothing away from the direction that we've given you to stop whatever they're going to do on 170th and 154th.
My recommendation is pass something on 154th that says start your linear park maybe or something like you've discussed, and then also a separate resolution to direct staff to get back to you right away with something on 170th.
Okay, so can I just amend my motion to? So I amend my motion to include what the town attorney just mentioned, which is to direct staff to start what I'm calling phase one of the Bridge Park, 154th Bridge Park, and a separate authorization to direct staff to look into alternatives at 170th Street.
I'll second.
All right, and the amendment to, we'll get back to the main motion as amended. Just on this, the amendment to the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're back. Any of those opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. We're back onto the main motion as amended. Vice Mayor.
Hey, Councilman Rodriguez, at one time, and I think the mayor just confirmed it, and we'll confirm it with staff, on 170th, DOT gave us that whole land, the south end side of it, of that road, for a maintenance yard. So we have that land that I believe goes all the way up to I-75, already given to us, or, was it a 100-year contract, or it was like a 100-year contract that DOT gave us that land on 170th that leads up to the bridge, so we can use a maintenance park. So, I mean, if we were allowed to, I think that it's important that we look at that section of in our option in your, when you direct staff to look at that, because we have that already in writing from DOT. So that would benefit 170th as well.
On the main motion as amended, no further discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruano.
Yes.
Councilmember Dieguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Collazo.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We officially have the groundbreaking next Wednesday, right? So after that, we'll get it done. Any other motions? Anybody else want to speak? Councilman Morano.
I wanted to go ahead after you.
No,
Remember
we're going down.
litigation.
We'll just go down. Councilman Morano.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because it was brought to my attention today that there are no assurances, neither from FDOT nor from the county, regarding weight restrictions on any of these bridges that would open. I received communication regarding an email from FDOT and an email from the county, whereby neither one of them would be restricting weight, trucks, traffic. I know that the Commissioner Bovo had at some point guaranteed that there would be no truck trafficking through the 170th Street Bridge, but there is an email from, I believe it is from Karina Damian from Miami-Dade County, where she states that they will not be monitoring weight or restricting truck traveling until the bridge is open and they conduct a study on the trucks that will be traversing and the impact. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councilman Morano. Vice Mayor.
Okay, so tomorrow night, as you saw through the presentation, Commissioner Pepe Diaz or Wednesday night, I apologize, is having a town hall meeting in Aragon on the other side of I-75. And so I'll be attending that meeting representing the town. And this is important because I think that people on the west side of I-75 don't understand what's going on the east side of I-75, right? And I live on 87th Avenue and 162nd Street, right off Miami Lakes Drive, and as another person put, sandwiched between 170th and 154, right? And I live that 87th Avenue traffic and Miami Lakes traffic every day. So I'm fully aware. So I'll be attending Wednesday night to speak on behalf of the town and for the people the east side or the west side of I-75 to understand. Again, I quote another council member: "The grass is not always greener." We have a lot of traffic on this side, and you can only fit 10 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound sack. And right now we're sitting at 15 pounds of potatoes on 154th Street, right? So I understand their concerns in West Hialeah, and I'm glad to see that the mayor of Hialeah represented that they have accurate fire rescue and police protection on the other side, because that was a very major concern of the residents of West Hialeah. So he's assured them that they have the adequate protection. So just to give you a little history, in 2005, the town of Miami Lakes, former Vice Mayor Tony Lama, and myself hosted a traffic summit here in Miami Lakes, the first one done in Dade County, where we invited all the traffic agencies to speak to each other. And this came out from the developments on the Palmetto, and we noticed that the county and DOT weren't kind of aligning, and they were like, "Can I see your pictures? Can I see your diagrams?" And so we kind of brought it together, and we brought everybody out of there. Out of there, we had 60 initiatives that came out of that traffic summit, including DOT, MTX, Miami-Dade Transit, Miami-Dade Traffic, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, the town of Miami Lakes. And we came up with 60 initiatives, 40 of them that were put in the strategic plan by this council or the previous council to develop the strategic plan for traffic for Northwest Dade and Miami Lakes, right? It wasn't just for Miami Lakes. We can move all the traffic in Miami Lakes we want, but if traffic from Northwest Dade keeps coming in, It's useless. So the plan was to move traffic in Northwest Dade as a whole. That includes Miami Lakes, unincorporated Dade, PSN. All right, so when we looked at that whole thing, all the agencies were brought in, and everybody came. This year, we had our second traffic summit, a review of those strategic items that we put forth, and every surrounding community was invited. The mayors, the commissioners, both Commissioner Bovo and Commissioner Pepe Diaz were invited. All the surrounding cities, all the mayors were invited, all the way to Miami Springs, Medley, and Doral. Okay? Because in the big picture, in the big scheme, the county has this traffic plan of it's called the SMART plan. I sit on the traffic committee for the County League of Cities. The SMART plan has been talked about for 30 years, and the only smart thing about it is that it doesn't include, or the only non-smart thing about it is that it doesn't include Northwest Dade. There's no options for Miami Lakes, PSN, north end of the Doral. There's no traffic options, there's no transportation options for us, right? And that's part of their SMART plan. Well, we'll get to you later on. Well, Northwest Dade happens to have a huge problem right now with traffic infrastructure. So we brought everybody in. The other cities didn't opt in to attend. They were invited. Commissioner Pepe Diaz was invited. Commissioner Bovo was invited. The county came. They sent one representative. Okay? And all the promises that we've been put on the table from 67th Avenue and 87th Avenue at the Gratney have been pushed off because now, I don't know if does MDX exist or does it not exist? It was dissolved. It was dissolved at the legislation in Tallahassee. So we have another mix in because we're getting ready to start these projects and plan for these projects, but now we have a funding issue. So every step that we take here in Miami Lakes, there seems to be a roadblock somewhere else. We take 3 steps forward and 10 steps back. So we hosted this second summit, and everybody was brought in, and we explained to them the infrastructure that is needed. All right, and so it was open to the public. It's recorded. You can see it on it was live on Facebook, and you can see it live off our town website. I encourage you to see what was presented by DOT. And like I said, all the surrounding areas. Folks, what we have is a heart attack, and I tell you as a paramedic, what we have in this area in Northwest Dade is a heart attack, okay? And when somebody's having a heart attack, and you have a lot of, and I'm sure you all can understand this, when you have a bunch of arteries that are blocked, and you go to a surgeon or you go to the emergency room, they don't tell you, well, you have 5 blocked arteries, but we're going to open 2, and let's see how it goes. And then we'll talk about the other 3 as time comes along, okay? Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's proven science that you've got to open all 5 arteries. And in the infrastructure of Miami Lakes, we designed that. We designed the underpasses at 164th and 144th on the Palmetto. We funded that. This town came up with the money to do that underneath the Palmetto and open those arteries. Okay? We also pushed for the underpasses at 67th Avenue and 57th Avenue, all right, to have some special roundabouts to relieve traffic. Okay? We have a gentleman in from DOT who works extensively with us on getting all these issues and initiatives put into place. So we can't even discuss opening bridges until those arteries are open. And that doesn't start till 2022. And so then once the infrastructure is in place, then we can go talk in maybe 2027, 2028, when that's done, about what we need to do. Mayor Slayton was right. The reason they took it off the plan is because 170th was never going to be a 4-lane street. It's a residential neighborhood mixed in with another residential neighborhood. There's zero commercial areas in that. It should never be a 4-lane street. Okay, so we need our infrastructure. We've committed. This council has committed to getting the infrastructure done, getting it done on the Palmetto, and moving that along. Without those arteries open, we're just putting more potatoes into a sack that doesn't fit. It doesn't work. What is our budget yearly for the off-duty police officers that this town pays to move traffic on 154? That traffic on 154 is not coming from Miami Lakes. That's coming from people avoiding the on-turn from I-75 onto the Palmetto and cutting through 87th Avenue. Okay? And so it's not Miami Lakes traffic. It's probably not even PSN traffic. But this town is paying the cost of that as it is now, right? And so we hear the word connectivity. How many times did you hear that? Connectivity. Connectivity. Let's open up the bridges for connectivity. Well, there's no way to connect us to the west side. If they're complaining that they can't go anywhere, where are we going to go? There's no connectivity. It's not true connectivity, right? So we need to build infrastructure, and there's plans to build infrastructure west of I-75. Let them build that infrastructure along with our infrastructure, and then we can talk about opening all the bridges and looking at all the aspects and looking at the big picture. But the big picture right now is we're not going anywhere anytime fast. So hopefully tomorrow I'll get my point across, Mayor and Council, to Commissioner Pepe Diaz and to the people. I don't know if it's being sunshined. It's an advertised meeting, and I encourage everybody in the council to attend. I'm going to be speaking. You can attend without speaking if at least you want to see the reaction. I know that there's a lot of concerned citizens on the other side of I-75 that don't understand what's going on the Miami Lakes side. And this council has a job to do. Today I represent the town of Miami Lakes, and I have to protect the town of Miami Lakes, right? Another day I might represent another area, and so that expands when that day comes. But today is about the town of Miami Lakes, right? And we have to protect our homes, and listen, I'm a Hialeah guy, right? I was raised in Hialeah, I worked at Hialeah Hospital, I met my wife in Hialeah, I got married in Hialeah, well, I got married here in Miami Lakes, celebrated my party in Hialeah, my kids were born in Hialeah, right? My family, my mother lives in Hialeah. It's not about a racist thing, right? It's not about elitist, it's not about Miami Lakes being better than Hialeah, okay? It's two different communities, and we run it two different ways, okay? And we're not disparaging the folks in Hialeah or the folks west of 75, which I have a lot of friends and a lot of family that have moved into that area. Okay, it's not about disparaging them. It's about poor planning. We're lucky that we lived in an amazing community that was planned properly 60 years ago, and they looked at the future of where Miami Lakes was going. It's a privilege to live here in Miami Lakes, and it's a shame to let it be destroyed that way. But those folks on west of 75 need to understand that they were lied to, that they were hoodwinked, and so with that, I'll yield my time, as Councilman Dieguez said.
I'm going to file a motion to intervene
Thank you.
in all this. And very briefly,
chamber, Vice Mayor.
it was an inspiring speech. They're going out to go take some action now. So, but very briefly, Mr. Vice Mayor, I just want to say thank you for providing that background on the issue, and I commend you for going into the lion's den, as it were. I will be saying a prayer for you because, as you may or may not have noticed on Twitter, I am probably their favorite council person, and they are very vocal about what their views are. And at least, I'll be honest with you, if you can get through to them, great, because unfortunately that has not been the reception whenever I have tried to explain our point of view to them. And it's unfortunate to give you a little taste that I don't think you were copying on this particular tweet, as far as what some of their views are as to Miami Lakers. One of them said, I'd be surprised if there was even one person who feared God among them. So, you know, we're pretty popular, and especially on Twitter. So if you can get through, great. And the last thing I'll say is, and I can't stress this enough, and I will say it to everybody here, I've already said it twice tonight, is make sure, though, that notwithstanding what you're trying to do, which is to get them to understand our position, keep in mind that anything can and will be used as in a court of law. So, you know, be very careful about how you say anything. I would even encourage you to get with our attorneys to kind of explain no-go areas and whatnot. So
I think he's going with me, I'm not sure.
Okay, if he's going with you, great, but I would still consult with him ahead of time.
I think you are.
But, you know, the attorney in me, especially the litigator in me, you know, just wants you to be very cognizant of how simple things can eventually come back to haunt you.
You want to be my bodyguard Wednesday night?
I think I will need the bodyguard.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Any further discussion on this item on the agenda? Any further I'm going to close it with a 2-minute, just quick 2 minutes. And Councilman Alvarez, you hit it on the head earlier, so did the Vice Mayor. This is not an issue between two municipalities, right? And I'll share this briefly because I talked about it on the air on Univision. Councilman Dieguez went to Reb Christian, right? Jeffrey Rodriguez was the starting first baseman for the state championship winning Hialeah High Thoroughbreds. But a lot of folks don't know that he has a state championship ring. Mariner Ruano went to the most Hialeah school there is, Champagnat Catholic, right? A staple in Hialeah. It's a reality. Champagnat Catholic, I used to play with him all the time, against him all the time when I was at Hareb. The vice mayor used to live right across Pride Park and go every single day to the park. Councilman Collazo went to HML. He literally works today to help the most vulnerable people in our community, right in the heart of Hialeah, every single day. Councilman Alvarez runs one of the nation's top high schools, an A school in the city of Hialeah. I'm still rated as one of the best point guards in Parks and Recreation history in Hialeah. But I wanted to say that because it's not an issue between two cities. It's an issue of traffic, not only regionally, but countywide. And on this issue we talked about today, the facts are on our side. 120%, the facts about both bridges, about transportation, are on our side. We can't continue to focus on anecdotal evidence that folks keep throwing out there. We can't focus on anything else. Let's stay focused because 120%, all the facts on all these issues are on our side. So I just want to leave that with that being said. So, Council, we move on to the next item. I'll take a 2-minute break so all the folks here can get a chance to go home before we go to the next item real quick. 2-minute recess. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Alvarez, I think he stepped out. Councilmember Collazo.
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilmember Ruano.
Present.
Councilmember Dieguez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Here.
Mayor Sid.
Present.
Mayor, you have quorum?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're on to item 5B, which is my item. As you all know, the gala's coming up soon. I'm asking folks to help raise a lot of money. We already sold out all of all the tables, all the $1,000 sponsorships. We have 17 of those, and they're all in. I think besides those, there's close to already 150 people with the table sponsors and the folks they're bringing, with the folks that bought individual tickets, over 150 people as of today that are attending. Bacardi is all in, has committed to doing everything, their entire bar. Sergio's is doing everything from appetizers, entrees, desserts. They're in-kinding all of that. Fantasy Designers is in-kinding everything. Power 96, your friends at the podcast, Councilman Collazo, they're in. Also, Haitue Beer is in 100%. So we have all these folks raising a lot of money because they believe in the cause of assisting the special needs community in our town. About 2-3 months ago, I met in a sunshine meeting with Councilman Collazo, Councilwoman Ruano, and Jesse Leyva, the liaison to that special needs committee. And some of the ideas that are floated around were great, right? I really wanted to see, I really shared some of the sentiments that Councilwoman Ruano said. Look, we have to show deliverables, right? We're asking people to raise a lot of money. We're asking people to do all these things for our community, but we have to show up now in less than a month and really show folks, showcase what we've done. And one of the great ideas that Councilman Collazo brought up, he said, listen, when we started with our Elderly Affairs Committee, we had some struggles. Everybody wanted to go do this, do that, do this. But what we ended up doing was a needs assessment. I had never really heard of that until Councilman Collazo brought it up. He said, look, it would be a great idea. We had contacted some folks. I know they got several quotes. Some folks that we did a ribbon cutting here, it was a little bit too much. It was $60,000. I know that the staff reached out to the George A. Perez Metropolitan Center at Florida International University. They came back at $10,000. They'll do from A to Z. They have an entire plan to really identify the gaps in services in the town of Miami Lakes for not only folks on the spectrum, but folks with Down syndrome, folks who have other disabilities that we can assist, and that really sets the roadmap for the committee. So I know the committee had brought this up. They discussed it. I know my committee member ended up moving to HML and doing that, and she really couldn't serve anymore. So I know that the committee it was what I had heard. They even said, look, the town should do this, the council should do this, and then them not going with this. But I really believe in us setting this bar, especially with explanation and the success that the Elderly Affairs Committee has had. I think it'll set a great roadmap. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make a motion to approve the partnership with Florida International University, the Metropolitan Center, to do the needs assessment of our special needs population here in the town of Miami Lakes.
I'll second.
Hey, Councilwoman Ruano, any discussion? Councilwoman Ruano or Councilman Collazo who were in the meeting? No? Yes, Councilman Collazo.
I just, and I guess it would be, I don't know if it's a point of personal privilege, but I would like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I think it would be symbolic as well if Councilwoman Ruano can be added, because as you mentioned, this was a product that came out of our Sunshine meeting, and like you said, it was a best practice that we incorporated in the Elderly Affairs Committee, but it's a best practice that I think that we can embrace among all the committees if it's applicable, right? The reality is that we as a community do a lot of master planning, and this is basically the master planning process for committee. Really understanding the problem, the population you're trying to serve, and really what's the best way that you can go about serving that. So it was something that worked, and thank you for your leadership, Mayor, in championing that issue and bringing it forward. And I think it's a deliverable that will immediately make an impact on the path of that committee. So thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Thank you, because you pushed this hard and kind of brought it to our attention, so thank you. Councilwoman Ruano, were you at the meeting when they discussed this? Because I really don't know all the details, but I know.
I was in communication with the liaison, with Jesse Leyva, regarding this, and it's definitely something that we need. The first estimate that we received was probably outside our comfort zone. So this second one, I think, is something that we should move forward with. The committee has been struggling internally. I've been to several meetings, and they struggle internally with the direction that they should take because they're not 100% clear on where the need is. By far, the population on the spectrum is the most active in the community, but the committee is hesitating towards creating programs specifically designed for that population because they feel that there are other needs out there that they're just not aware of. So this would move them in the right direction. Thank you.
Got it. I just wanted to put it on the record because I don't want the committee to kind of feel bad because I know they discussed this. And so it was pretty much they were struggling with it, they didn't go with it, and now we're taking it up as a council because I agree with you. It's the right thing to do. So seeing yes, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that everybody understands that the 10,000 would be drawn from the budget of the Special Needs Advisory Council, Special Needs Advisory Board. It would. Will be. That's the funding source for these 10,000.
Has the committee voted on that? Has the committee been a part of this decision?
My understanding is that they did address it, they considered it, and they wanted the town to pay for it. But the
Correct.
reality
That was
is,
my understanding as well.
yeah, the reality is at this point in the fiscal year, we don't have any money. I mean, we're 6 weeks from the end of the fiscal year, and we're going to, despite what some people think, we're not going to have a $700,000 surplus. So our proposal, our understanding is that this proposal encompasses drawing that money from the budget of the Special Needs Advisory Board from the funds from last year's gala.
And now after September 21st, we already got, I think, just in sponsorship, $17,000, just in ticket sales. So I mean, I think we're projecting hopefully a lot more than last year because we got the food in-kinded. So, I mean, whichever way you guys want to go, I know that the committee in an entire year, I mean, that's where I feel that we need to show up at this. I'm going to speak on stage, so are you. I know Lucy Lopez of Part 96 is super excited, and we have to show folks that we delivered, that we delivered on our promise of moving to assisting folks with special needs in our community. Last I checked, I think the only thing that was spent from the $20,000 that we collected last year, remember that gentleman that came here in tears that gave us $2,000 was less than $1,000 for the event, and there's still $19,000, close to $19,000.
The committee was creating programs or in the process of creating programs to use the funding for the programs, and they were hesitant on using, and I think we openly discussed it, I was hesitant on using monies for this kind of expenditure when we had promised the donors a program, a deliverable to be a program. So maybe I misunderstood. I was under the impression that this would not come out of the committee's budget.
I mean, whichever way, I'm going to pledge that if then the proceeds are going to go back to the committee anyway. So I mean, that's where I kind of see we have to show up on September 21st and show deliverables. Hey, we set the foundation. This is what I foresee. We set the foundation with a partnership with one of South Florida's premier universities to really identify the gaps. And I think you hit it on the head. The committee's been struggling. Our liaison said it. I think this is a great way forward. The money's going to go directly back into the committee coffers, a large amount, but we have to show. I cannot show up on September 21st, continue to ask people for money that are all committed. There's 17 people that already paid $1,000. Fantasy Designers is guaranteeing over $20,000 in product that they're producing. Sergio's another several thousands of dollars. Bacardi, Hightoy. So that's where I'm struggling. We really have to show that this is setting that foundation for year one, and all the money's. How do they know what programming needs to happen? And I think this is where it identifies those gaps. Either way, the money's going to be there. I mean, we're raising. The money's being raised. I understand the committee's position, but you know, I'll be honest with you. I'm making these calls, so is Joseph, on a daily basis to I literally ran into Lucy Lopez and Zog, and one of the first things, hey, we're excited about the gala. What have you guys done? hey, we're working towards this. I'm putting the special needs assessment with Florida National University on the agenda. We'll see where it goes, but we have to set that, we have to show something, deliverables. Councilman Rodriguez.
I understand where Councilman Ruano is coming from, but in my opinion, honestly, I think this is sort of a natural first step, right? In the committee's not going to know what they need to use their money for unless they have an assessment that tells them, okay, these are our needs. This is what we need to do. So this is, in my opinion, is a natural first step into using the funds and growing and actually laying the foundation for the Special Needs Committee.
I'm sorry, if I may.
Yes.
The committee, has this been run by the committee at all?
Yes, my understanding is that they discussed it and they were in favor of the program or the assessment, but that they thought that the town should pay for it.
So we would be approving this without their consent, per se?
Yes. If you wanted to do something different, then I would need to go and find $10,000, which in this year's budget, similar to next year's, is going to not be easy, but, I mean, if that's the direction, we'd have to try and do that, but it won't be easy.
If I may ask Councilman Collazo, when it was done with the Elderly Affairs Committee, do you recall how that process was done?
Different times. Financially, the committee at that time was just started out, and the way that the committees were configured, they were given monies, and much very similar circumstance. They didn't. Everybody had great ideas in the room. Some people wanted to advocate for people with disabilities. Some people wanted to advocate for more parties. Some people wanted the Olympics. So there was a lot of going around or banter. So one of the things that we did to kind of analyze the needs of the community was go down the road with the needs assessment. We partnered at that time with the very same institution that gave you this pricing now, which was the FIU Metropolitan Center. I remember, and I haven't seen all the deliverables, but I know that they did charrettes, they did focus groups, and basically that gave you the core elements of what the Elderly Affairs Committee is today. The focus group, or at least this is reassessed every, I think, 5 to 7 years, and I think they're about due. And it either confirms that the committee's tracking in the right direction, or they start focusing on different things. So kind of to what Councilman Rodriguez said, it is a natural first step for the committee. I see the reluctance that you bring forward, and I didn't really see that point until you started making it. Is there any alternatives? Could the future monies from this gala be pledged to that? I just think it's a smart planning process, because the reality is, while we know we have this great need, the reality is that we need to figure out exactly how to best utilize those dollars. And I see that investment in $10,000 a way of maximizing future monies that come into that committee, to that committee, and maximizing that investment for that population. I don't know if it's time to hit the pause button and maybe recircle back with Yessi and the committee. I think you're the natural person for that. Because I would feel jaded if I was a committee member as well. And I see what your hesitation is. You're really taking into account, how would I feel if all of a sudden I'm being told what to do with this money, and it would invalidate how I felt. So I think you're really feeling for the committee and advocating for them. So it's really, we're gonna. While I know this is the best step, I
agree.
I think we need to kind of bring them into the loop, so to speak, right?
I agree, and in conversations with them and the meetings that I've attended, they have been they don't have a clear picture of what they should be doing, because they don't have numbers. And I wholeheartely agree that this is the natural first step. This is the only committee that's not funded through our general budget, and I feel that I would be more comfortable if this would be funded by the town and not through donation dollars. If there's any way that can be can be done, if we can rummage through the budget somehow and find,
Well, I mean, obviously, the resolution calls for expending budgeted funds. The only place where we have budgeted funds is in the Special Needs Advisory Council. So if the direction from the council is to find it in some other place, then I can't recommend, from my perspective, that you pass this today. Then we can have to rummage through the budget and see if we can find 10,000 somewhere else, so that you could approve it a week from now at the, or a week from tomorrow at the next special call, where we can recommend some other funding source that's not the budget of the Special Needs Advisory Board.
I would feel more comfortable doing it that way, and I completely understand where the mayor's coming from. I myself pledged many personal dollars, and I plan to do the same this year for the Mayor's Gala. It's a cause that's very near and dear to my heart, and I support it, not just with my, public persona, but I support it with my bank account as well. And I would like to see some town funding go into it, as it does into other committees. I wouldn't want to see this come out of the committee's budget. If there's support for that, I'll...
Mayor, if I may, I think it's important that we get it done before the gala so we have something to say. So maybe I would propose having the funds used from the committee and then pledging to reimburse the committee out of next year's budget, if that's something that the rest of the council would be interested in. Because I think it is a time-sensitive issue. We want to show that we are moving this along, and maybe the next year's budget is going to give us an opportunity to recoup or, make the committee whole again, but they can front the money with monies that are budgeted already.
And not only that, we're going to raise this gala a lot more. We're projecting a lot more.
No, but I understand what she's saying. What she's saying is all the other committees get town funding, and this committee doesn't get town funding. I understand that. But the timing of this is not ideal. So if we had the committee pay for it, and then next year, we're going to have a budget meeting next month. Let's focus on getting the committee reimbursed for that expense.
We have a meeting next week, you said?
2 weeks.
The meeting that was supposed to be tomorrow
That was moved.
to address the FP&L franchise fee was moved to next Tuesday?
7:30, and then later on, the budget
The
workshop.
budget workshop.
You have 2 meetings next Tuesday.
So
So I
we
would
wouldn't,
propose to-
I mean, we'd still be well before the gala. It's only a week away. I don't think that next year's budget is going to be any better than this year's budget with regards to finding funding.
Agreed.
And I don't want to be argumentative, but I want to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, because I think it's the right thing. If the purpose is to say, what did we use last year's gala money, that there's a deliverable, if we're funding it through some other source that is not from proceeds from the gala, then I don't think that we could really claim that it's a deliverable from the proceeds from the gala. And I don't know if
No,
that sounds convoluted, but
No,
I hope I'm making sense.
I completely understand. We always talk about having skin in the game, and I think that this is a way for us to have skin in the game with regards to the special needs community, because as a town, we have not invested town dollars into this committee. And when we had our committee budget workshop, I did ask the chair to speak to the council, and I did ask them to stress the fact that we may at some point need a budget. This is not what I promised. The donors that I recruited and the people that I spoke to that purchased tickets, this is not what I promised them. And I've had this conversation with committee members. We promised a program, and that's what I would like to see the money spent on. And I completely understand I'm just one vote up here, but I would feel more comfortable if it came out of our general fund.
All right, any further discussion on this, council?
Is anybody else making a motion? then?
There's a motion on the table.
No, I understand that, but I mean, of the alternative proposals, is anybody else going to put one forward?
Can I amend the motion to read that it will be, that the study will be funded through general fund dollars, or does this motion have to pass first and then?
You can do an amendment, but if I may, I think, first of all, I was going to speak earlier, and Councilman Collazo then said most of what I was going to say, and then you came to the other conclusion that I was reaching, which was, why don't we try to defer this to Tuesday and try and, get the committee's input? Although, and I think most of us have been committee chairs, I understand committees don't like to be told what to do, but at the same time, we can't have them just always insist that somebody else, cover something, especially when the money's there. I think, as we said, this is an important first step. This will be the first way in a much larger strategy on figuring out how they utilize the money that they have, and perhaps even future funding from our general fund. I'm personally fine with using the money raised from the last gala toward this study for now. And like the mayor said, we're going to get that money back and extra after this gala is all said and done. And then next year we can figure out where we pull the money from, to fund them on a regular basis. But I also agree, let's move this forward. But because I do agree that the input is important from committees, it's why they're there, perhaps defer this to August, and then we just make a decision at that point, after you've consulted them and gotten their pulse on the issue. My 2 cents. Just wanted to make that recommendation.
Well,
Vice
I didn't
Mayor.
see in the report where it said how long they would take to complete it, to complete the needs assessment. Does it say? Right. So, I mean, if we have the announcement, we have enough time to discuss this and have the announcement before the gala. I think is what
I think I'll
Councilman
move to defer the item just to Tuesday's meeting. There's enough time to notice it, and that'll give Councilman Morano and whoever else wants to at least talk to them. But I also think that we should impress upon them that we probably, for the purposes of this year, pull the money from the existing funds that are there, and then next year look at other ways of funding aside and apart from the gala. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Mayor.
Any further discussion, Vice Mayor?
I like Councilman Rodriguez's idea of pulling the money and then refunding it. I think that Councilwoman Morano has a really good point, but I think we need to guarantee to her and the committee that they will be funded or refunded that money. And it also keeps the integrity of the donors. I think that it's something that we really need to look at, that aspect, to make sure that people know that their dollars are going towards what they were promised. So I think that we can come to a compromise here, and I think Councilman Rodriguez hit it on the head, of taking the money now because it's such a priority to getting it done, and making sure that they are made whole and those monies are put back, and have a proper budget funded for that committee as we go into next year. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of money, but some money to that committee as,
$10,000?
well, I mean, minimum. And if that's what it takes, I mean, we fund other committees $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. You know, and we don't have an aspect, and that's why the study's so important, to give us the information of knowing what the assessed needs of these people in our town are. I
We don't even know how
completely
many
agree.
people that live here are actually going to utilize all these services, so that's why I
Right.
think the assessment would be great.
Right, no, and I completely agree. I just think that we need to assure Councilwoman Romano that we are going to give the money back to the committee. And I think that's her concern. I mean, I can see the concern in your face and your eyes and the disparage look that you have over losing that money that people fundraised for. And so I think that if you,
Let me-
if that's a
but
compromise, I
wa-
think Councilman Rodriguez hit it on the head.
I just want to clarify something. We had a program. I was super excited this summer. There were 18 people signed up for a program. I think Jesse was going to run it. It got canceled, right? We were ready to talk about it. I don't know what's going to pop up again. It's almost helping the committee, and I think it helped the Elderly Affairs Committee. I'm going to vote no on tabling it. It is what it is. We'll come back. It'll come back next week. this has to move forward. We cannot continue just to sit back and wait. We're raising a lot of money. People are donating. Not only the band is doing it for free the entire night, the singer's doing it for free. I think the only thing we're paying for is the casino folks. Everybody else is doing everything. What we paid for last year in food, 100%, because they believe in the cause. They believe in everything we're doing. I put out a list of stuff that I had to show that we were doing something. I had to order work with staff to see if we can order a Braille, to convert all of our business cards into Braille, because I'm going to be honest with you, the committee hasn't delivered. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. And you hit it on the head. It's been difficult for them to decide which way to go. This is a perfect way to do it. We should just fund it with the dollars that they have. There's going to be more than enough money coming into their coffers to decide whatever they want to do. They have to start moving the ball forward. There are people expecting services. There are people leaving the committee, getting frustrated. I know I spoke to my former appointee, who's now running the special needs program at HMO. She couldn't believe that the program got canceled. And I get it. We have to show that the ball's moving forward. There are too many people raising big amounts of money because they believe in this cause. I'm voting no on tabling it. It takes precedent over everything. I think we should just vote this up. That's just my opinion, but that's fine. We're back to tabling it. So.
And just to interject 1 second, and I want everyone to understand that the mayor and I are on the same page. I fully agree with the fact that this committee has not moved forward, and the only reason why there was a program on the table at all was because I pressured them to deliver something. We were in the same meeting, and I did not take no for an answer. I wanted to see a program before the next mayor's gala. And they put it together, and sadly, it was put together in a rush, and there were components of it that weren't thought through. As a matter of fact, we've been working with providers to see if we can have a provider come in and deliver this program, because the committee's overwhelmed creating a program. So I just want you to know that I am completely in agreement with you that a needs assessment is necessary, and that the committee needs to move forward, because we are the ones that are promising and are fundraising, and the funds are being raised for a purpose. So we're on the same page. I just disagree on where the funding is coming from.
100%. It's just frustration that I have. I mean, there was a gentleman that came here crying, gave us $2,000 an entire year ago, and his money's sitting in a bank account. That's wrong. That's flat out wrong. And
Which is why I think what I have proposed is a compromise. We use the money that we raised to get something done, and next year we put our money where our mouth is, and we step up and fund this committee.
So may I amend the motion to add that we will commit to funding at the very least $10,000 for the Special Needs Advisory Board in the next coming fiscal year?
We need to vote on Josh's.
There's currently a motion that takes precedence on all of them.
Unless Josh withdraws his.
Josh is going to withdraw his motion
I'll
to table.
withdraw it for now, but let's hear what it is.
So we're back onto the main motion, which is mine and Councilwoman Verano.
Thank you. I'd like to amend that motion to read that the council is committing to funding a minimum of $10,000 of Special Needs Advisory Board for fiscal year 1920.
I'll second that. Discussion on that.
Yeah, the discussion on whether, well, I think that we need to make that commitment, and the time to address when or how we're going to get those funds is next Tuesday. So.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Can I throw a wrench into this? Sorry. I just, the practical side of it. So long as, and I haven't seen it, so I'd have to look at the resolution that created the Special Needs Advisory Board. I just want to make sure there's nothing in there that would prevent us from allocating money. So that's my only caveat or my only concern.
We can amend that also, so if need be. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
There is one no. That's Councilman Josh Dieguez. Back onto the main motion as amended. Any further discussion, council? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Collazo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruano.
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Dieguez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're on to manager's report, item C1.
Yes, our staff is going to present the report. Herman Cure.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public. Herman Cure, Strategic Planning, Performance, and Innovation Manager for the town. So early this month, the company Drone Training School USA approached the town, offering in-kind donation of drone footage and a marketing video for the town. The drone footage will be captured by staff from Drone Training School, as well as the students from KidWorks USA, which is an after-school program center. Drone Training School provides a drone training program at KidWorks to children 4 to 13 years of age, and it is partially funded by the Children's Trust Foundation. In our case, the footage and the marketing video will be used in the Imagine 2025 portal, as well as on our website and in other similar marketing efforts. That's it. Any questions or thoughts about the proposed collaboration between these two companies, KidWorks USA, the Drone Training School, the Children's Trust Foundation, and the town?
So council, just full disclosure, I had a chance to meet with Bill de la Sierra. A lot of you guys know him. He was really excited about this, wanted to give back to his community, had brought a incredible program. So I think it's a great partnership, especially not only with his school, not only with a company, but an organization also like the Children's Trust, which will showcase a lot of things that the town is doing too. So I'm in full favor. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Hemang.
Thank you.
Council, any other business? Anything else? Wednesday. Mr. Manager, just to recap for our residents that are watching from home, we have a meeting next Tuesday.
Yes, sir, next Tuesday, 7:30. 7:30?
It's two meetings, correct?
Correct. Special call is at 7:30 p.m., August 27th. And then when the special call is done, the town council budget workshop will start. We have it advertised for 9:15. It could be a little bit later.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Clerk. With that being said, have a good night, everybody. This meeting's adjourned.